All right. Yeah, I like what Juan Perez is saying. Juan said Morge is never late, nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he intends to. I think that it could not be summed up any better. And that's an original quote. Juan made that up himself. JP reminding everybody that I was 1 minute early last time. I like this. Yeah, this is a new wave of timeliness from word streams. New wave of timeliness. One place and chill. One piece and chill. That's pretty funny. It says finally. Don't know how long you were waiting. Could have been maximum 20 seconds because I started 7:30 EST on the dot. TCB says, good evening. How's the progress for the video tomorrow? Video tomorrow is actually slightly delayed because basically tax purposes. So so right now, me and my editor had basically pretty much simultaneously kind of realized like, fuck, we got to do our taxes for all of this, everything that, anything YouTube related basically over the course of the last year, right? So the taxes for that have to be done. And so we're both kind of scrambling to do. It's just weird because like certain things he needs to 1099 me for, and then I need to 1099 him just because it's a whole mess to explain things. But yeah, we both kind of just realized roughly this weekend that fuck, the IRS might just end this whole thing if I don't get on top of the tax situation. So both of us had slightly different priorities. Today, but the video hopefully still comes out tomorrow. I got it over to the image finder late just because of, again, those reasons. So he turned it around pretty well, but just stuff. So hopefully it comes out tomorrow. At latest, it'll come out Wednesday, but should be good. Hawkeye says no Yamato video. Wait, how do you know it's a Yamato video? I don't think did I mention it? Oh no, I think I probably mentioned last chapter review that it's going to be Yamato video. I think I said that. AJK says, Morge, how could you mod people of your own courtesy while I had to pay for mod on my own birthday? Who did I mod out of courtesy? I almost never mod people out of courtesy. That's just not how it works. Who did I mod out of courtesy? I think I did last stream on a whim, but that was to make a point. I think somebody said something last stream that warranted a mod because I literally don't even remember what it was. But that's very rare. It almost never happens. Andy F says, become a real pirate. Yeah, no, real pirates go to jail. Zach M says, you mentioned it. You did mention it, says Gilgamesh L. Okay, makes sense. I was like, are you a mind reader? How do you know it's a... How would you know that? Luz Vasquez says, Morge, make me a mod. Yeah, no, that's not how it works around here. TCB says, submitting your taxes will end in failure. Yeah, honestly, maybe. Milo says, you mod people all the time? What do you mean? Milo has no blue wrench next to his name, so he doesn't know what he's talking about. Shamael says, you should mod me out of courtesy to make a point. How about this? How about we like the stream? The stream is currently under 100 likes. Shockingly low, embarrassingly low. Let's all like the stream, and let's get the stream likes to at least the same as the viewership count. Stream likes should always be equivalent to viewership count. Just logically, it makes sense, right? It's a very reasonable expectation in my opinion. Andrew says, what do you think about the extent of Luffy's power will be? Rubberizing water/air since he held lightning. Also, what do you expect out of Kaido's awakening? So, rubberizing air... Okay, the lightning moment, that did change... I won't say it changed that much, I suppose, but it did extend things a little further than I would have expected in terms of how far Luffy's, reality bending can go, right? So I think that the lightning usage, I don't think it'll necessarily be like Luffy can suddenly like summon storms or things like that. This is just me guessing, right? All we can do is guess right now. I don't think Luffy will suddenly be able to summon storms or things like that, but I think the route Oda's kind of going is that perhaps anything that can be slightly toon-versed will be. So, I think a cartoon character just grabbing a lightning bolt like it's a toy out of the sky and throwing it, that's something that falls under the realm of what makes sense. I think that it's not necessarily gonna. You know what? I guess the best way that I can say I expect Luffy's abilities to continue to go is that I don't think that Luffy, his abilities are necessarily going to be he himself generating all sorts of like crazy broken things. Like I don't think he's going to be shooting like laser beams and things like that. Obviously, it doesn't really fall under the power whatsoever. I don't think he's literally going to use like sun powers or anything like that. But I think the general idea is that anything that can be toon versed will be. So Roadrunner effects, eyeballs popping out of their sockets, elemental forces being treated like props, things like that. I think can happen. That's my thought on it right now. But let's take a look as it goes. As for Kaido's awakening, I just expect it to be basically uber buffed out, current like hybrid Kaido, but just way faster, way stronger, more durable, obviously, probably more firepower. I just think that it'll just be a super buff on everything that he has right now. I think it's purely a stats buff, rather than really changing the full nature of like the nature of his abilities or anything like that. Shanael says, do you expect to see a cool fire and lightning panel so Luffy looks on the same level as Kaido and Big Mom, who can manipulate multiple elements? I don't know if we necessarily need that. I mean, I think we get the idea with the most recent panel of what Luffy can kind of do. Scythe says, you going to see film Red? I'm not gonna go see film Red, but honestly, I mean, I enjoyed watching film Z. It wasn't bad. I think film Red is just inherently pretty enticing because it's a Shanks movie. And like, as much as I don't view anything about the movies or anything like that as canon, it might just be fun to watch for the action and such. So I might go check out. I don't know if I would pay for theaters to go see film Red, but if it came my way somehow, like let's say, I don't know, somewhere easy to stream or something like that, I might watch it. Otherwise, I'll probably just watch a lot of clips of it. Like I've seen a lot of clips of Stampede, and I don't intend to watch all of Stampede. Hamda Jaled says, don't you think it's pretty cool that Jinbe got an important moment exactly 500 chapters after a chapter named after him? 546. That's one of those things that I would say I would chalk up to coincidence, kind of. Because, again, One Piece is such a long series that, look, eventually, like, what chapter was Zoro introduced? Zoro's probably introduced chapter 3? Zoro's probably introduced chapter 3, so, yeah, probably, like, if you just go by certain, I'm sure chapter like 103, 203, if you go by all the chapter counts or whatever, you're eventually going to come across a chapter where it's like, oh, this time's up with this thing. The reason I say that is because I don't think that, like, this chapter itself was more so about Raizo. I think Jinbei's moment was good, but it was really a Raizo moment that Jinbei kind of assisted with. I personally viewed it as, like, trying to give Raizo more of the spotlight, and Jinbei had a handy ability to give him an extra, to like really make what Raizo was doing more useful in the current situation. Marcel says, do you still believe the raid will fail? And a smiley face, or a laugh tongue face, something like that. Yes. In fact, now more than the time that I was most probably back on the fence was basically between 1043, 1042, 1043. Between end of 1042, 1043, because those were the only two chapters. It was like, oh wait, is Oda kind of setting this up as like final battle situation stuff? But everything from then on, is kind of framed it as like, no, setting Luffy up to fall and setting Kaido up to win. I know people don't see it that way, but that's just. I'll have another video out on it because there's more things to talk about. I'll have another video out on it, probably. Well, not this week, obviously. Maybe for next chapter, I'll see where I can squeeze it in. But this one's going to focus more on Kaido. Super Cookie 11 says, are you going to live stream One Piece episode 1015, chapter 1000, when it happens on April 23rd? No, definitely not. No. Of course not. Of course not. Zach M says the fire being put out before Luffy beating Kaido is even more reason for it to fail. To me, just like everything narratively, the way the flow is going is definitely setting things up to basically have the protagonist have a hard fall. Like everything. Even the manner in which the fire was resolved, I was like, okay, good. Like the more that Oda tries to suck dramatic tension out of each moment and kind of keep framing it as the protagonist snowballing towards a pretty much overwhelming victory, the more I'm like, okay, the other shoe is about to drop. So I think that the next video I'm gonna drop, it's gonna be more focused on some dialogue that's been coming out. But I'm probably never gonna do a video that really breaks down like, okay, tonally, why does none of this seem right for a final battle? Because I think that's gonna be too controversial, and too many people will basically not like to hear that. But this is a stream, so I feel free basically saying it here, which is just that tonally none of this fits anything that you would expect for a final battle, but it 100% fits basically building the heroes up to fail. Antonio Rodon says make a playlist. A playlist of raid field videos. That's amazing. Wait, is the Red Force podcast here? Why is Eric / Christian? I don't know which one of you this is. Why are you not a mod? Let me make you a mod. Where are we at? Luffy Joestar has a good question. He said, "What will Luffy's hybrid form look like?" So the thing is, I don't know how this whole Zoan situation works with what Luffy's doing right now. I really don't get it. I really don't get it. No, I think I just haven't really thought about it. But in terms of like, is this his pure Zoan form right now? Is it his hybrid form? Does Zoan Awakening mean that there's actually only one form that it takes, and that there's no such thing as hybrid versus pure animal versus human? Like, I'm not sure. Because we know, right, so Zoans have 3 forms, right? Your human form, your animal form. I mean, let's say normal form, because maybe some people aren't humans. Normal form, animal form, hybrid form, right? So with the Awakening, is Awakening a 4th form, right? Or is it an advanced version of hybrid or an advanced version of animal, right? In which case, there's technically 2 forms that would come with Awakening, if hybrid form gets an Awakening and animal form gets an Awakening. It's hard to tell. Luis Vasquez says, Raizo greater than Uzui. I assume you're talking about Demon Slayer. I'm actually a big fan of Uzui. I think Demon Slayer, I think a lot of people hate on Demon Slayer because the story is it's not even its fault, because it's not like the story is bad. It's just really nothing good, or like nothing like special. But the anime is special. The anime of it, the production of it, that in itself is a work of art that really elevates it. So it's not like Demon Slayer's fault. It's just, it is what it is. And I really enjoyed the Demon Slayer anime. It's just the spectacle of it is particularly the ending of season 2. It's just something special that you're not going to get from any other series. Sen R says, "What are your thoughts on Momo being murdered being the Act 3 tragedy?" That'll never happen. I'm so ridiculously confident about that. I don't think Momo's being murdered. It would send Onigashima crashing down and break the Scabbard spirits. I think if anyone's dying, it's the Scabbards. I've already put out a video saying why I think that Killer would die. But if people are dying, it's the Scabbards. Momo's definitely not dying, because Momo's arc requires him to Momo's arc is the most important arc, it seems, so far in Wano. Really, the only character arc that's actually gotten significant focus, or actually been written decently well so far in Wano. I think it's like, it to me, where Momo's at right now is basically the halfway point. So I think that's, again, makes sense for him needing to survive till the end. Anime Dimension says, Jinbezo water will put out the fire, but will wake Tobi Roppo. Oh, that's an interesting way to say it. Or interesting way to think about it. I personally think that the Tobi Roppo being woken up would be more so a product of Kaido's scream, Kaido's victory scream. So we'll have to see, like, one beast waking up the others. Felix C says, the tragedy of Onigashima being what the raid failing is called in story is my favorite headcanon right now. Oh, like naming the incident? Yeah, that'd be pretty cool if that was the way that the incident was named. Keenan says, if the Supernovas versus the 2 Yonko was Roof Piece, is this Goof Piece? That's pretty funny. I'm actually surprised. That might catch on. If you people say that enough, Goof Piece. That's pretty funny. Groovy Zeno says, what will the remaining CP0 member do? Nothing. Nothing. He's not doing anything. Maybe he does something. I actually have no idea. I like to think CP0 still has a purpose. I mean, there's still that big mom stuff that people are throwing around with CP0, which is really interesting, right? Just the connection between, like, it's one of those things that maybe we just never find out, but like the designs of the kids from the Lamb's house, right, from Mother Carmel's orphanage, the fact that her plan was to siphon them over to, like, feed them into CP or into Cypherpol and have them become future agents. And now we see some Cypherpol agents. We don't see their faces, but we see that their designs do look remarkably similar to those children. It's interesting. It's very, very interesting. Maybe there'll be something more to it. I don't think even that other CP0 member is dead because it's fucking One Piece. Like, I don't think that Kaido killed that guy. OHS says, what do we even know about the 5-act structure and how long the Act 4 lasts? Is there even enough time in the arc to cover the raid completely failing? I just don't know what people mean by the time in the arc. What does that mean? What does it mean? Can somebody explain to me what time in the arc means? Where's the countdown? Where's the timer? Where was it said that we will only get this many chapters? The only thing that makes sense to me, I mean, the only thing, like, literally the only two things, like, time-wise that have kind of been thrown out are, like, kind of were framed as the structure of this was basically, like, Hawkins earlier on talking about 1 month as the timeline. And more importantly, the fact that it's a Kabuki act structure, so that would suggest 5 acts. Like, that's the framework that kind of is the default framework as far as I know. So that's the only timeline that we were kind of set up with. Well, actually, I'm being disingenuous there. Obviously, the 2-week timeline for the raid failing was pushed way, way, way more than Hawkins' 1 month timeline. I guess what I'm saying is more so, if we're talking about, like, outside the story, right? Outside the story, there's not really like a chapter count limit to Wano. It's more so like, okay, if we're trying to guess how long it's going to be, well, it seems like we're in the 3rd act out of 5. So that's basically where the story should be at, right? Joe Mama says, did Ohara hide his face until he had an audience? Ohara, let me think. No, him hiding his face has nothing to do with trying to grow or not grow an audience, as far as I know. Is more so, I don't want to speak for him, but like I'm trying to remember what he was telling me about it at that time. I think that was more so just personal comfort level. Because once you, okay, a quick insight is basically, I think, once you show your face online, right, there's not really any going back, and it's easier actually if you show your face when you have less people, right? Because when you have, if a random person basically went onto YouTube and made a video right now, it's going out to like maybe 1, 2, 3, maybe like 10 people are gonna ever see it, right? So putting your face on that doesn't really affect you, that like you don't think about it much. But I think Ohara's channel, kind of in terms of growth, it had already gotten, because we were kind of collabing a little bit and I was shouting out his videos at the time and stuff like that, so he got his growth spurt pretty fast. So he was in the thousands of subscribers pretty relatively quick compared to most people. So once you're already having an audience, then it becomes a bigger deal, like, oh fuck, am I going to show, then you think about it more, because it's like, now you're going to show your face to thousands of people, and once you do that, you can't really go back on that, right? For me, I think in my like 4th, 5th video, like pretty early on, I was like, let me show my face in my videos, because it's just easier to edit when you don't try and fill every part of a video with an image or something like that, you know, as I'd been doing it originally. So, and I had so few viewers, I didn't have to think about this thing of like, oh, I'm going public now. It's just like, I had so few viewers at the time, I was going public to what, like 200 people? Didn't really matter. Hamda Jaled says, we didn't see hybrid form for Onimaru. I know he wasn't there long enough to show it, but that might mean mythical human Zoans don't have one. Mythical human Zoans don't have one. So one thing that's interesting is that I think, I don't know if that's the case, because like, okay, Sengoku probably falls under the Hito Hito no Mi model, right? Is that right? Sengoku fruit? Let's take a look. Sengoku fruit. He probably falls under the Hito Hito no Mi model Daibutsu, and he also, as far as we know, doesn't have, we just haven't seen enough, you know? I haven't seen enough right now to be like, okay, this is Marco's hybrid form versus his pure Phoenix form, things like that. My feeling is that it's possible that just everyone that's awakened is maybe already. I don't know. I don't know when Oda's gonna show Oda's really gonna break it down like that for us. Side note: I was slightly disappointed to find out that Onimaru is a fox that's eaten a fruit. Um, the devil fruit's name. Let me see. Yeah, it's just I didn't like that because I actually did like the idea that he was an actual, nine-tailed fox with the ability to transform. I like that. I thought that added more flavor to the One Piece universe personally. Making that a devil fruit I felt was a little unnecessary. Multi2 Terminator says, do you have any thoughts or theories about the connection or backstory between Kuma and Bonnie? I mean, the connection and backstory between Kuma and Bonnie, so it's tricky because Bonnie is very clearly a very, very, very important character for reasons we do not yet know. Very important character for reasons we do not yet know. In fact, she might be a character that we already know of, just going by a different name, thanks to the fact that she can change her age, she can change her appearance to a certain degree. So it's very hard to tell about what Bonnie's backstory is. Now with Kuma, as far as I can guess, right, like they're back. My guess is okay. So they're both Kuma's Revolutionary Army, right, which means that something likely happened to his kingdom that had him realize that he needs to join the revolutionaries to fight against the world government, something along those lines. My guess is, I don't know. My guess is something like maybe he took to piracy because something happened to his kingdom and then went to the revolutionaries and then continued as a pirate so that he could become a Shichibukai and go undercover for the world government, but it's really, really hard. The Red Force podcast says, end Wano so we can get to Shanks. Am I speaking to Eric or Kristen right now? End Wano so we can get to Shanks. I think that no matter what, we're going to get a cutaway to Shanks once Act 3 ends. Virgo's here. What's up, man? Red X says Zanisha's statement doesn't mean anything. It's just saying it feels like fate, but that's the point. Yeah, it's juxtaposed it's Zunisha saying it's Joy Boy again is juxtaposed very deliberately with Luffy saying, I'm Luffy, king of the pirates. Now, that does not mean anything in itself, right? It's more so Oda just bringing up that, hey, this is going to be a discussion going forward, right? Luffy saying, I'm Luffy, king of the pirates, doesn't disprove that he might be, some child of prophecy / fucking reincarnation of Joy Boy, but we'll hope not, right? It doesn't disprove that, but it does show that Oda is aware of that because it's a very deliberate ordering of statements and panels right there, right? You have Zunisha saying, this is all fate. Luffy's Joy Boy again. Luffy basically saying, this is me. I'm Luffy. I'm the man who's going to become king of the pirates. Same person I was from day one. This is my story, right? Maybe I'm embellishing a little bit what Luffy's statement means, but I'm just saying that the statement feels very deliberate to add right there. It's a who are you? And Zunisha's saying one thing and Luffy's saying another thing. So it does have to be addressed, but it's too early to say what the statement is just yet. But it's really good to see that that Oda is playing that up in the story itself. So it's not something Oda's not aware of, that was honestly the only, I guess, fear / concern that I or maybe some other people had, because I put out my videos, and in my videos I said, yeah, like this whole fate thing versus Luffy's free will thing, etc., that's something that's important that has to be addressed and discussed in the story, right? It has to be addressed and discussed. You can't just hand wave it away. And it does seem like Oda is going to address / discuss it, okay? And I said in those videos, yeah, I trust that Oda is going to. I always trusted that, like, this is something very deliberate, and there's plenty of things throughout the story that suggest that it is deliberate. But it's good to see that confirmed that Oda has something in mind for this discussion. Marmar says, hi Morge, hi everyone. Z Kaiser says, this arc seems so long that if the raid fails, it seems like the arc would need to end, or the setting would need to switch up big time. I think Wano post-Kaido's defeat would be very different with Wano pre-Kaido's defeat. And I think one of the big things that, it's funny because before Wano, a lot of people had a lot of predictions for who's going to show up in Wano. So we had predictions about the Marines, about the Straw Hat Grand Fleet, about Vegapunk, about other revolutionaries were thrown out, Blackbeard parts were thrown out, right? We had a lot of predictions, and a lot of people pointed to many different things, saying like this suggests that this group could come over, this group could come over, etc., right? At the end of the day, Wano was a very, very tight, isolated affair as far as we've seen so far, right? It's really just been the big mom pirates that have made their way over. A lot of people thought all the supernovas would come over. I personally think that, again, going this route, it's like oh, well, are we just going to be repeating the same beats? I think that no, this was, again, phase one of the story, which is more Wano-centric, more focused, right? I think what comes after this, once Kaido and the Big Mom Alliance basically win, will be having Wano essentially blossom into a much bigger, more sort of world stage sort of story, right? Where a lot more people essentially be involved based on the things that have happened in Wano right now. So I personally think that this is a precursor to a much bigger section of Wano. And I don't think that people will be getting tired of it necessarily, because then the things that have potentially been set up to happen after this are just a lot more exciting. Like, this battle like, Kaido literally just an hour ago basically announced what his plan even was. Just an hour ago, he basically announced, like, okay, we have a goal. We want to do this. We want to get the ancient weapons and transform Wano into this new vision of Wano, right? Villain will always get what they want and succeed in their plan in some way first, before then being taken down. Grizzly Adams says, people say there isn't enough time in Wano because they actually believe that 5-year timeline Oda gave like 2 years ago. The 5-year timeline, that's just something it's not worth arguing with, because it's not, we already know. We already know it's not, like, either you believe it, in which case there's no point arguing with you, or you just know what Oda has said in the past and you know it's not true, so it doesn't really matter. Bruh Moment 3 says, did you like Goodbye Eri? Goodbye Eri? Fujimoto is he's on something else right now. As I think he's the most creative mangaka in terms of how he uses the medium right now. By far, I don't think it's particularly close. But maybe you can link me somebody else that changes my mind. In terms of how he approaches the medium, it's drastically different than any other mangaka that I have read. Very, very, very different, and much, much more creative in terms of, like, what he wants to do with the medium. Okay. That being said, Goodbye Eri, I think the first 90% worked beautifully. There were so many twists and turns throughout just that first 90%, and so much, like, the way the ideas accumulated and layered on top of each other over the course of that, and kind of this new story blossomed out of what it seemed like it was originally, and it kept you kind of guessing and thinking and putting things together, and it was really, really emotional by the end of it. Emotional way that something like Chainsaw Man never made me feel. I love Chainsaw Man, right? But that wasn't what I cared about in that series, right? I teared up by the time I got through certain phases of this one shot, right? So the first 90%, I thought he could have left it at that and been like, amazing, 10 out of 10, 11 out of 10 one shot. The last 10%, I'm not going to knock it because it's so bold and he clearly knows what he's doing, and it was clearly his intention from the, like, it fits with the ideas of the rest of the thing, and it's kind of like he can do it to put a stamp on, like, what that one shot was kind of about, and to kind of reaffirm the ideas basically spelled out throughout that one shot, but in a way that kind of also shits on a bit of what it was. You know, I don't know, it's a very bold move, I'd say. I'm not going to say I loved it, but I respect it, and he's clearly got a grasp on this shit in a way that, like, I don't think I've seen anybody in recent times have. Personally, maybe you guys have read stuff that you can happily recommend me of mangaka who do crazier stuff with the more experimental stuff with the medium than he's doing right now. But just the paneling and scene direction of this, very, very different. It's like it took what Chainsaw Man does well and took it to, because he got to spend more time on it, it's one shot, he kind of scaled it up to 11. LD Sparrow says, wouldn't it be kind of climactic for the sun to rise after the raid fails? Kind of make me think that this will succeed by the end of the night, at least. That's a good point. That's one of the few things that I consider like a really strong point in terms of the raid succeeding. Dawn, sun, etc., timing up. I think that's a good point. So we have to see. But I think, like, flip side is that it would be anticlimactic in a million other ways if Luffy just wins like this. So it's weighing one versus the other. But I think that's one of the few things, because I personally think that, like, in general, with the raid succeeding camp, which is most people, there's not a lot of discussion of, like, look, thematically, why does this all fit? Or, like, how does this complete certain character arcs, right? Or how does this put together like, do you, I don't want to get into too much of that, but basically, like, that's an argument I like because it actually goes to one of the ideas of the story, right? Which is the dawn, right? So it's saying, well, the dawn, wouldn't that time up nicely with the sun coming out? I think that that's a good argument. I think like 90% of the other themes throughout the arc point towards the raid failing, but we'll have to wait and see, obviously. Wavy Wayne says Kaido's awakening could be his dragon form with his base form starting out as a carp. No, because this is, yeah, Luffy's awakening was him reaching his Nika form, so Kaido's fruit could be similar to that. I almost wanted to address it in the last video, but it just wasn't worth writing out a section for that, so I'll address it here. First of all, it's been suggested that Luffy's fruit is different. It works fundamentally different, or it's like hidden in a way that other fruits were not hidden, right? So it does seem like the Nika fruit in this case is buried under another ability. But more importantly, Kaido's fruit, it's not the, like, I think people are still stuck on the fish thing, right? It's not like the fish model like golden koi or something. It's just fish model dragon, right? So the fruit is a dragon fruit. It's pretty strict. It's just a dragon fruit. It's not like, you know what I mean? It's not like secretly a, it's not like it's not like it's supposed to be a fish fruit that has the awakening ability to turn into a dragon. It's just dragon is being classified as a type of fish, right? So with Luffy's fruit being an exception, and it was clearly framed in the story as sort of an exception, as far as we know, any other fruit in the story that says like, you know, cow model giraffe, or like bird model falcon or whatever, right? Like the fruit you're getting is the fruit it is. So there's not really a reason to expect that. The second big thing is kind of just like, this being Kaido's final form would be extremely surprising just based on the way it was presented. If you compare chapter like 795, 921, the chapters where Kaido himself was introduced, Kaido's dragon form was introduced, versus chapter like 1008, I think might have been it, where like Kaido's hybrid form was introduced. Kaido's hybrid form, if you remember, was extremely disappointing to most people because there was not that much effort put into the design comparatively to Kaido's other forms, and the way Oda presented it was very haphazard, kind of just like tossing it in next to Big Mom. Presentation-wise, compared to Kaido's other forms and his other introductions, it was clear Oda put a lot less effort into the hybrid form. You could even compare it to like Rob Lucci's hybrid form being revealed, and that was way more hype and way more dramatic than Kaido's hybrid form being revealed. So I think most things point towards this being just a placeholder form for Kaido before his actual awakening. Like, it would just be extremely anti-dramatic if... Is that a word? Yeah. Anticlimactic, undramatic, whatever you want to say, if this was Kaido's final form. Especially with Kaido talking about awakening so much, it's like, as far as we know, any villain that's going to be using awakening is going to say that they're using awakening. They like hype. It's a big deal. You hype up that you're using awakening. Anime Dimension says, in 1044, Luffy stated, I don't think Chopper can save Luffy, so Law will use his power to save Luffy from dying, not immortality surgery, but something similar. So Law will die. This is Act 3 tragedy along with Onigashima Falls. I do believe Law will die. But it's one of those things where, like, I've already said I think Killer will die during if the raid fails. I do think some Scabbards will die. I do think Law will die. It's yet for me to think, like, I don't know if it's this early in the story. I personally, for a long time, believed that Law would die in Wano. But we kind of have to see the direction that Onigashima goes before I can feel like, yeah, this is the point where Law would die. Because I think no matter what, Law dies sacrificing himself for Luffy in some way. That's just kind of the direction that his character arc was, that his whole character storyline was written. It's what makes the most sense for his story to go out as. So I do think that happens at some point, and with the theme of death being so prevalent in Wano, I do think that this is a good spot where it could happen. Supreme Pirate King says, if Kaido beats Luffy, who is Joy Boy, would he technically be the only villain to achieve his dream in One Piece? It depends what Kaido's full dream is. Because a lot of villains get what they, like, Doflamingo got to take over Dressrosa, which is something that he really wanted, but that doesn't mean that's his full dream, you know what I mean? Wrath of Reptar says, if the thematic elements are so set in stone for the raid failing, what are your thoughts on the successes of the crew in previous arcs? My thoughts on the successes of the crew in previous arcs. What does that mean? Could you elaborate on that? I don't really know what that means. I like that the crew succeeded throughout previous arcs. I guess if we were to say, okay, quick example, let's say something like Any slobby, right? Any slobby, all of the themes basically pointed towards evolution of the crew, which means that they had to break apart break apart basically more than ever before over the course of Water 7 so that they could rebuild themselves, right? So following the ship analogy, etc., they had to essentially rebuild themselves, become something new. They had to graduate from what they once were before to this new vision of actually being a legitimate pirate captain, right? So Luffy having to step up, and pirate crew, right, that are ready to actually take on the world and any challenges, right? They're not just a group of friends lollygagging around going around on an adventure, right? So the whole arc of Water 7 through Enies Lobby very tightly bit like the narrative events of that arc very tightly followed basically what the themes of that arc were. Raibatsu says, are people a little quick to say Luffy is the strongest in the series now? So many other characters have unknown feats, and he hasn't beaten Kaido yet as much as he's currently doing well. No matter how you can you cannot no matter how you spin it, right? Luffy is very, very, very clearly being framed as the one that's punching down on Kaido right now, right? Kaido is the framing is very, very blatant. Kaido is the one that's being made to feel like the underdog, the one who's being made to seem like he's out of his depth, out of his element. He's the one that's basically up against a giant. And there's so many ways that Oda's even just drawing these panels, right? Giant Luffy above terrified little Kaido, right? Luffy, this thunder god, and this guy grabbing lightning with Kaido below him. Everything about it right now is Oda very much framing Luffy as basically the unstoppable force, and Kaido basically as Kaido's the underdog. Like that's basically how it's being framed right now. So take that as you will. We don't know how much Kaido will show by the end, right? So I obviously believe Kaido at his strongest once he uses his awakening will defeat Luffy. But I'm saying if you personally don't think that, then right now, just looking at what it looks like right now, yeah, Luffy is definitely being made to seem as though he is clearly above Kaido. It's funny because this is one of those rare cases where I see people scrambling to kind of say trying to kind of downplay it and be like, no, actually Kaido and Luffy, Kaido's still really close to Luffy in strength right now and stuff, right? Like people are trying to actually normally it's the other way around with people trying to argue how strong or how close Luffy is to the villain. Right now people are actually having to try and argue that no, Kaido's he's putting up a fight. He's still close to Luffy in strength and stuff, and technically he's injured or something. It just goes to show basically if you're having to make that argument, then you kind of know who's being portrayed with the clear upper hand throughout this. I mean, the tone, everything reflects that. AGMC says, One Piece, One Piece, One Piece, One Piece, One Piece. Great comment, thank you. Nicholas Harvey, thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Great Kate says, didn't Oda say 5 years right after Dressrosa, though? I don't remember if he said 5 years after Dressrosa. He says that shit a lot, so I have no idea. OH&S says, when I said time left, I meant chapter length of Act 4 compared to other acts. There's not a lot of info, but isn't Act 4 equal to Act 2 in lengthwise? I just know that Act 3 is the longest, so it depends on how long... I don't know if Act 4 is supposed to be equal to Act 2 in length exactly. Lone Lupin says, could VP's failure, Vegapunk's failure, be that he copied Kaido's abilities rather than his fruits? That's another reason that I'm saying that I think that Kaido's fruit is not a fish fruit, but legitimately a dragon fruit, because Vegapunk copied Kaido's fruit, and it's a dragon fruit. It's not a fish fruit. But you're saying would make Kaido's dragon his awakening, and why Momo is a dragon. Think that is possible? I'd like Kaido to still have more. Copied Kaido's abilities rather than his fruits. Would make Kaido's dragon his awakening, and why Momo is a dragon. Think this is possible? I'd like Kaido to still have more. I see what you're saying, which is that it didn't copy the fruit itself, but an imitation of Kaido's abilities, and Kaido happens to have awakening, so therefore the fruit the artificial fruit that's produced seems as though it's a dragon fruit, but it doesn't function the same way as Kaido's, which was maybe originally a fish and had to unlock dragon, something along those lines. I think that's what you're saying. That's a possibility. Edward Roman says the sun is made of plasma. Perhaps this will be the Logia aspect of Luffy's new form. Sun is made of plasma. Perhaps this will be the Logia aspect of Luffy's new form. I don't know if Oda's gonna get that technical with it. That the sun, plasma, that sort of thing. I remember like when a lot of people were throwing around like what Luffy's fruit actually would be once we kind of realized that it's something else, and people are getting into things like oil or resin, things like that, things that are a little more obscure and kind of hard to, they're a little more technical, I guess, explanations. And I think generally you would not want to lean into something like that, this late in the game as a reveal, because it just feels like it makes it feel like a little more like arbitrary or obscure or like strange. You know what I mean? So I think Plasma would kind of fall into that category of like it's getting a little too technical with it, maybe might be wrong. Whereas the route Oda did go is basically just saying, look, Luffy's not just a rubber man, he's like a cartoon man basically at full power. And that's an idea, that's a concept that's very simple for the reader to get behind. Like we saw 3 pages, 4 pages, whatever, end of 1044, right? We saw a few pages of what Luffy's ability was, and we could all instantly understand it through the effects that were happening, right? Ow, eyes popping out of sockets, Luffy just having ability to freely enlarge his body, change shape, etc. We could all tell like it was Toon versus powers because it's something very intuitive that we can all understand from, other fiction that we've seen, basically. So I would lean towards Luffy not having something technical like sun powers, but I don't know. We'll find out. Ivan back from the card shop says, Mr. Ward, whose will is better, Luffy's to win or yours for the raid to fail? Luffy's to win, because Luffy will ultimately win at the end of the day, no matter what. Well, I shouldn't say end of the day. At the end of whatever point in the story, he needs to win, no matter what. So, no matter how much I want Luffy to fail, he will eventually win. Just eventually. You know what I mean? Ivan back from the card shop says, do you think the gear steam effects have some significance? They emit steam and he keeps them powered by air. Blood doping, aka gear second, is even about getting oxygen to move through your body quicker. I don't know if the steam effects are like a big deal with this. I think it might just, I personally think it's just visual. I personally just think it's visual because Oda at some point realized that visually it looks cooler if Luffy has, some sort of aura type thing coming out of him, and steam is the only thing that like logically would make sense for something like this. Like his body's getting so hot it's steaming, stuff like that. Before he could get to the point with the Nika stuff where it's just like, now it's just magic. So now he's just got, clouds and stuff around him because he's a sun god. Grizzly Adam says, if Kaido uses his powers to make it cloudy and then increases the factory production making more smog, then he could keep the sun from shining over Wano, stopping the dawn until he's finally defeated. Great point. Love it. That was something I talked about back when people were saying like back before Sulong and stuff came out. I was like, Kaido and Big Mom can both control the weather. I wonder if they both use that to kind of get in the way of Sulong at some point. But I don't think they ever actually did. Okay, everybody, like the stream. It's that time. We all got to like the stream. If we like the stream, then I don't even have it in me to make a promise right now. Let's just like the stream and see what happens. Skylar H says, howdy, Morge. Howdy, what's going on? Have you considered Joy Boy possibly was a dragon who ate the Nika fruit? It would explain a lot, in my opinion, like Kaido believing himself to be Joy Boy. A dragon that, until we get some sort of explanation on, I don't even know if we'll ever get this explanation. How real are mythical beasts in One Piece? Like, do phoenixes actually exist? Right? Is there a giant is there a giant Buddha that once existed? Right? Until we get an explanation on that type of thing, I'm not going to put too much stock into like, oh, this was a dragon. We know from the one-shot monsters that, a dragon once existed, but it's how much Oda actually wants that type of thing to play into the story going forward, we have no idea. Ivan back from the card shop says, Kaido brings up how pirates will abandon each other. Another plot thread that needs to be resolved. What ways do you think it might be paid off? Ivan, I have a video for you that is coming out. Again, I talked about this earlier towards the beginning of the stream. I don't yet know where I'm going to squeeze it in, either before next chapter or maybe after next chapter. But it is another video. This one is a bit more, well, the last one was, I guess, a little Kaido-centric, but this one is even more Kaido-centric. And that bit of dialogue you just talked about is something that is referenced in that video. There's a lot of things. It's essentially another, read fail type video, but coming at it from a different angle, things that I've not yet talked about. So you stay tuned. There's a video coming for you. But I'm not going to promise next. It might be next Tuesday. I'll say maybe next Tuesday, if not the Tuesday after that. Bill says, since Luffy has a Zoan fruit, does that mean we will see him using Rumble Balls to escape a near-death situation like Chopper and Enies Lobby? I don't think so, because I think Luffy with Rumble Balls would be too broken at this point. Luffy with Rumble Balls right now, it's too much. I think it's too much. I don't, as far as we know, Rumble Balls might only work for Chopper and Chopper's Devil Fruit. As far as we know, but that might be completely wrong. Dragonfire says maybe Orochi kills a chained Kaido who's alone during the party. Poetic for Kaido to get sneak killed by someone he disrespects/betrayed with no one to see him die. Only issue is Kaido's supposed to be unexecutable. Orochi killing Kaido greater than Zoro killing Kaido. I don't think Orochi will ever get the satisfaction of killing Kaido because I don't think that Oda thinks Orochi deserves something like that. Orochi has generally been portrayed, like, as far as villains go, Oda kind of portrays Orochi as, like, the bottom of the barrel, scum of the earth type villain who I don't think Oda wants to get like a sort of victorious moment, whereas Kaido is more of, Oda treats Kaido with more respect. He's a much more honorable villain that I think Oda's going to not have him essentially taken out by somebody like that. Maybe someone like Blackbeard or something like that, but not Orochi in my opinion. Hamda Jaled says Oda has the community cheering for Kaido lately, huh? Yeah. I mean, I was ahead of the curve on that, for the record. I've been cheering for Kaido ever since this raid started. But I think we're all on board right now. We all want to see Kaido start putting up a good fight against Luffy again. Tofi 2000 with a very original question that he's not asked before. Hey man, Warge, do you think One Piece will have a really big plot twist which will turn the story upside down? Your videos are kind of popular in the Hispanic community. Congrats. Oh, that's good to know. I had no idea. That's really good to know. Mr. Crescent says, I really hope if Sanji gets a matchup with a Big Mom pirate that we get the return of Knife Sanji. Always felt like that was a missed opportunity in Whole Cake. So, here's something that's I personally still believe that at some point or another in the story, we will get a glimpse, we will get to see Sanji versus Streusen in some way in a cooking match. I think because one thing that stood out for me in Streusen, so Oda did a couple things with Streusen which are kind of funny, which is like, he did make Streusen out to be more important than previously expected. Like Oda hinted at that towards the end of the arc, that Streusen was actually a big deal. Especially just the fact that actually the Big Mom pirates are secretly the Streusen pirates, and that he started this whole thing by taking her under his wing. Interesting stuff. But a couple things. So when Streusen cut Whole Cake Chateau, right, people did actually make a big deal, like, Oda did actually talk a little bit about, I forget, there was some quote drop, might have been Beige or something, about like how Streusen was mysteriously stronger than he appeared. On top of that, there was some dialogue dropped about how Streusen's food, like, while it makes he can make any food, it doesn't actually taste good. So he's got these magical chef-like abilities, but the food doesn't necessarily always taste good. And the person who made Big Mom the best meal ever was actually Sanji. So, I don't know, I thought it'd be really cool if we saw like another Wanze type situation, but this time Sanji versus Streusen. We didn't get that in Whole Cake, but it's entirely possible we see the Big Mom pirates again in some manner. Zaibatsu says, if Kaido does have another level he can wheel out whenever he wants, such as an awakened form, why hasn't he yet? I think he does, but I'm curious. My quick thought is basically that I think it's very possible that Zoan awakenings, perhaps outside of Nika, actually, especially because Zoans have a will of their own, so that actually plays into this a little bit. From what we remember of the Demon Beast guards, right, the Impel Down guards, right, they were basically all mindless animals, right? So when they had awakened Zoans, they truly went into an animalistic state. I personally have a theory that Zoans in general, in their awakened forms, you really go berserk and you really go into an animalistic state. That's what we've seen from the awakened Zoans so far. The Nika fruit seems to be an exception, but even there's a debate to be had how much Luffy right now is actually being not controlled or anything like that, but like how much his behavior is actually perhaps being influenced by his fruit a little bit, right? Because Luffy's like a fun, like, goofy guy, right? But some small things, right? Like Luffy literally sleeping, sleeping in midair and stuff like that. We've never seen him try and like goof off that hard during a battle, right? Like it's a little bit different. It's just a little bit different from normal Luffy. And I'm not gonna be like, oh, that's because of the Zoan. Maybe Luffy's just got so much freedom and feeling so good right now that he's acting a little different and even like more laid back than you'd expect during a battle. But it's arguable that maybe the Nika awakening has Luffy acting like a little bit more in a certain direction than even he himself normally would. But to go back to the Kaido point, my guess is that Zoans don't like using their awakening too often just because uh, it puts them in a state that is a bit more detached from their normal self control. Like, I could definitely see Kaido's awakened form being much more primal and animalistic and kind of berserker esque. Lone Lupin says, yeah, Momo basically has the Kaido fruit. Kaido could come up with more moves, for example, but Momo is limited to what was copied as things he was capable of then. That's possible. That's very possible. Definitely very possible. One second. All right. Lamework says, what in One Piece never fails to put you in a good mood? Never fails to put me in a good mood. I mean, there's so much. I mean, I don't think there's anything that never fails to put someone in a good mood. Like, what if your mom just died? Like, it's still like, I don't know if I'd feel like reading One Piece right then. Like, what if she just got hit by a car right in front of me? Like, would I be like, I know what'll fix this? Going back and reading any Slavi. I don't know about that. But, so I don't know if there's something that never fails to put me in a good mood. But in general, I think anything, any of the classic Luffy victories and then the fallouts afterwards, basically. Anything like, Luffy beating Crocodile, fallout afterwards. Luffy beating Lucci, telling Robin that we're going to go home together, etc. Yeah, I think any sort of iconic Luffy victory, Luffy versus Arlong, etc. G4162 says, I think it's obvious Luffy loses to an awakened Kaido. Yep. But when's the next rematch if he does? I think the final rematch basically happens at the end of the month, like was suggested by Hawkins. Or does Kaido get finished off by someone else, like people suggested, the Marine/government? Does Kaido get finished off by someone else, like the No, I think Luffy definitely beats him at the end of the day. I think we don't finish this arc without Luffy beating Kaido, but I do think that if Kaido's to be killed, it would be by someone else post-war. Captain Face says, Luffy grabbing lightning is possibly him turning it into rubber as the freest fruit. What's next? Water, Kizaru's beams, air, etc. into rubber. So this was brought up earlier in the stream. I think that Oda's maybe not going to... I don't think that Oda's going to get too tight in terms of what Luffy can and can't do. Because that's part of the fun of the ability. People like referencing the mask. That was the fun part of the mask. We don't have like a clear-cut sort of table set of like, okay, he's capable of manipulating this element, this element, this element. He can turn certain things into different properties. He can make himself stronger this fast. Like, I don't think that it's going to be like a tight rundown of abilities, but rather in the flow of the moment, if Oda thinks something is cool, that would fall into sort of cartoonish, slightly reality-bending Toonverse powers, Oda will throw it in and have Luffy be able to do that. Quick example, hammer space, right? Like, we know what we've all seen cartoons, right? Like, characters can pull like giant things out of their pockets or whatever, or like stuff something into their pockets if they want. There's actually a Whitebeard commander who has the ability to do that. But I wouldn't be surprised if, but that's his devil fruit though. I wouldn't be surprised if Luffy's able to do something like that out of the blue. And if he just does that once and then that's never really shown again. Like, you get what I'm saying? I think that like maybe Luffy can do those, like change different elements into whatever, and he can do other things besides the lightning thing, but I don't think that Oda has, my guess is I don't think Oda has something very set in mind in terms of like, these are the things Luffy can do, but rather, in the moment, it would be cool if Luffy did this. It would be cool if Luffy did this callback to a cartoon ability, stuff like that. 3D Masters says, since we had no hockey markings on Gear 5th, like Gear 4th, do you think this is Luffy using the invisible hockey armor Rayleigh was talking about? No, the invisible hockey armor Rayleigh was talking about, that should still have hockey markings, right? Like, we've seen Luffy using that. We've seen Luffy using that plenty of times. Like, he was using that, by the time he left Udon, he was able to use basically invisible hockey armor. We saw him destroy a tree with that. Kaido's talked about that. That is basically what they call Ryo. Like, we're well past that. I I think this is more so just a case of like, Oda's not always super consistent when he draws the black coding or doesn't draw the black coding. Oblong Polecat says, I know we all think Luffy is busted with his awakening right now. I don't think he's busted. But do you think Blackbeard will awaken both his devil fruits and be super OP comparatively? I think Blackbeard has a third devil fruit by the end of the day, although it's very possible he has his third devil fruit already. I do think that awakening all of his fruits will basically be like Blackbeard's final form. There was somebody saying last stream, like a really interesting idea, which is like, it's possible Blackbeard is able to even steal Luffy's fruit temporarily or something like that. But that would be absolutely insane to imagine. It's hard to imagine that without Luffy dying, but you never know what happens. Phantom Greyfire says, Shrek 2 analysis soon, please. Shrek 2 is actually, like as a kid, we owned the DVD of Shrek 2, and it was great because it had all of these extra stuff at the end, like there's like an America's Got Talent thing where all of the Shrek characters participate in America's Got Talent, and it was like animated and voiced and everything like that, like it was legit official. Shrek 2 has a special spot in my heart because it's one of the animated movies I've seen the most. Also, actually, Shrek 2 in general, there's a weird consistency to Shrek 2 being important to my childhood, which is like one of the only video games I owned as a kid was the Shrek 2 video game. Literally the only video game as a kid that was like a single player game, but you could also have your friends play and stuff like that. The only sort of story mode type game that I played as a kid was Shrek 2. That's the only one. As a kid, I did not play a single story mode game besides Shrek 2. I got into like Zelda and stuff later on, like, you know, years later basically, but I'm saying like elementary school and stuff, I had almost no games. All I had was the GameCube. My parents didn't really buy me games for the GameCube, but I had Shrek 2. And I had the Shrek 2 DVD with bonus features and stuff like that, as I previously explained. Shrek 2 video game is really bad, by the way. Zowu says, I feel like we've only ever seen artificially awakened Zoans, in my opinion. Impel Down Guards, potentially by Vegapunk and Chopper. Yeah, there's an argument for that like maybe those Zoans were forced to awaken and therefore we haven't actually seen what it organically looks like. That's definitely possible. Redx says, Morge, are you ever going to do a One Piece gag tier list? What are your top 5 running gags? Running gags is too hard. I'd have to really think. But like some of the funnier ones I can think of off the top of my head are like, I mean, Duval will always be, I think, the funniest. But I also think like Frankie's Centaur, that's definitely up there. I'd have to think. Best gags is a good idea, though. Maybe I'll do that at some point. C. Hegland says, thought of this last stream. Luffy loses publicly, and when everyone loses the will to fight, Usopp has a speech moment. Then a possibly powered up Zoro leads and stalls until Luffy is fit to fight again. You know, if things went like that, I think that'd be really great. But, I mean, certain things just clearly need to happen. Like, when I say clearly need to happen, I'm just surprised that other people... Can I get the reason for why people don't agree with this, which is like, when Kaido says, right, like, he spells it out. He's like, unless I show them proof, they're not going to stop believing. That's a literal quote. He says that after he knocks Luffy off the roof the first time. Till I show them proof, they're not going to stop believing. Their spirits won't be broken, whatever, right? After Kaido beats Luffy in 1043, he goes down and he's like, yep, some of their spirits aren't broken, because Nami still believes that Luffy's not dead, that he's totally fine, because Kaido didn't bring down any proof. Is that not a clear setup? Like, the villain's very clearly establishing what it will take to actually test the faith of the Alliance, showing them proof, right? Like, it's established right there. Their faith won't be broken till I show them proof. Kaido has not yet shown them proof of Luffy being defeated. All of Luffy's defeats have been out of sight. Nobody's really seen or known about them. Does that not set it up for the final test of spirit? Again, talk about themes throughout the arc. Spirit is the most important and most prevalent and most mentioned theme throughout the arc. I think that's going to happen no matter what. Maybe the raid doesn't fail. Like, that's possible. Maybe the raid doesn't fail. Maybe the act ends with Kaido knocking Luffy down through the roof, Luffy defeated, whatever, shakes up their spirits. Maybe big speech or something by Usopp, I don't know. Maybe the Straw Hats then come together, they have to hold off Kaido for a while. That does bring a lot of the different themes of the arc together, such as the importance of followers to their leader, things like that. Themes that are clearly set up but not yet fully delivered on. And that could be a perfect, and that fits narrative structure very well. And then the Luffy could then come back to defeat Kaido by the end of the day without the raid failing. I'm just saying, like, look, Luffy's still gonna lose the next fight. He's gonna lose this fight to Kaido. V Shinku V says, what proof did Roger have that made people believe he reached Laugh Tale? Roger's base said that because of his clout, because I don't buy that. Any theories? Maybe maybe it was. I don't know. I've actually no theories on that. Yeah, why did they believe that he reached Laugh Tale? I don't know. Word just got out. I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm just seeing people's reactions to me saying, I guess, I guess I'm assuming it's to the moment where I said, not everything. Like, there's not a moment that will always make me happy reading One Piece. But that's true. Like, come on, there'll be some times when One Piece isn't just gonna turn your mood around. What if you lost your arm in a tragic accident, huh? What if you lost the entire left side of your body, or the entire right side of your body, even worse? Or if you're left-handed, the entire left side of your body. Think about these sort of things. What if you lost both your arms and one of your legs? Or all of your arms, all of your legs, and you're just a nugget. Is reading One Piece going to help that much then? Are you going to go read the arc where they helped out a nugget and helped him kind of realize that he could still chase his dreams? No. Once you're a nugget, your dreams are over. I really hope there's no nuggets watching right now. Keenan says, I can't read kanji, so can't confirm. Someone said Crocodile calling Impel Down guards awakened was mistranslation, and that he only meant they were waking up from being knocked out. Can you get someone to confirm or deny this? No, I don't know what the translation is, but as far as we know, they're awakened zones. Tuna Sub says, favorite series other than One Piece? I've got Vagabond. Also, I think Akainu kills Kaido after Wano and gets advanced, conquers Haki, then he fights Luffy at some point. Akainu killing Kaido would be really cool. I don't know if he actually does it, but that would be really, really cool. My favorite series other than One Piece, I mean, if we're talking manga, it honestly varies from time to time. It honestly varies a lot based on what I've been reading most recently. I'll say Chainsaw Man is the one that I'm looking forward to coming back the most right now. Andreas Duca said, fresh haircut, man. Thank you, I appreciate it. This time I did actually get a haircut. Lots of times it's not actually a haircut. You guys just think it's a haircut, but this is a haircut. Supreme Pirate King says, One Piece double page spread tier list. That is a great idea. That is a great idea. It would just be a bitch to assemble. How long would it take to assemble that? Take a while. Hey guys, like the stream. Let's get it to 1,000 likes. That's very doable. See, the thing with the Impel Down guards, Keenan, is that Awakened Zoan, like, that was the first time we heard of Devil Fruit Awakening in the entire series. So it would be a crazy coincidence if everybody was like, okay, Awakened Devil Fruits are a thing back in Impel Down. And then what do you know, like 500 chapters later, 300 chapters later or something, it turns out that Devil Fruit Awakenings are an actual thing. It's just that Doflamingo is the first one to say it. Yeah, I do like the idea of a double page spread tier list, though. Yeah, there's like a lot of things. Usopp has taken no steps about it, stuff like that. Or steps to Sark, stuff like that. There's just a lot of things. I definitely think Luffy loses to Kaido again, but there's routes that you can go from there without the whole raid failing. But, we're still in Act 3. Something bad will happen by the end of it, stuff like that. Yeah, guys, like the stream. Like the stream. Terabyte 605 says specifically just Onigashima double page spreads. I think Onigashima double page spreads, that's hard because, yeah, that's hard. That one's hard because I think, like, how many double page spreads has it had so far? Obviously, the one with like Kaido beating Luffy, that's amazing. And 1043. I think that's the standout one right now that I can remember. Mam6 says, Morge, I think for Luffy to lose, Zoro needs to be present. All the Straw Hats need to be present and watch Kaido defeat Luffy for the moment of despair to be high. I mean, that's just another thing. Like, if you guys remember, like 1043, the moment where everybody thought Luffy lost, like, and when I say everybody, I use it very loosely because I'm just saying, like, basically Fodder and Kid and Law. That's basically it. It was just Nami and Chopper that were there, right? So just Nami and Chopper were there to hear about Luffy losing. So none of the other Straw Hats heard about it. None of the Straw Hats have any idea. So Oda only really made that tension last for like 10 pages, and then Luffy's back up and fighting, and then it's back to comedy, gags, no dramatic tension, etc. I do think that the setup is definitely there for Luffy to basically lose. I mean, he's literally said it. He's literally said, I need to show them proof of Luffy losing. That's what will break their spirit, right? That's what he believes. So that the villain says that means that needs to be put to the test. That's just the way it goes, right? It felt very deliberate that Oda kept the defeat moment so short, and he kept all of the Straw Hats except for Nami and Chopper out of there. And the reason that I think Oda kept Nami and Chopper there is because, as I talked about in my One Piece Straw Hats video, like Straw Hats so far in Wano and their storylines in Wano video, Nami and Chopper happen to be the only Straw Hats that Oda's really been focusing on in terms of when it comes to faith in Luffy, with Chopper being the guy that Oda likes going back to when news of Luffy's defeat comes, and Nami kind of being the character really since Whole Cake Island that Oda's kind of been playing up like, I believe in Luffy, like, I believe that he'll win no matter what. I believe he'll win no matter what. I believe he'll win no matter what, right? So she's been put into kind of the cheerleader role there. So it was pretty deliberate to me. It looked like that Oda had Nami and Chopper as the only two characters to get a reaction out of that defeat, whereas everybody else, because it plays more clearly into their storylines or whatever's set up for them soon. Whereas the rest of the Straws do all have to be there when Luffy actually goes down. Keenan says, about the Awakened Zone thing. I completely agree with you. I just get scared because of how infamous pre-time skip One Piece is with subpart translations, lol. I think you can check various translations and it should all show the same thing. Keenan says, also definitely going to have to limit a page spread tier list somehow. That's a logistical nightmare. Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea how we would do that. That one seems hard. The part here says, which Straw Hats have been treated best/worst post-time skip? I think Sanji ironically went from the worst to one of the best with the last two arcs. Sanji definitely skyrocketed. Like, you could argue that this is between Whole Cake and Wano, it's given Sanji pretty much everything a Sanji fan could ask for, because he got the strong character stuff and he got the really big power-up stuff. And the thing is that Oda was really aware that Sanji had been lacking in the power-up and wins department because Oda gave him such a huge boost, right? Like, he made a big point of it to be like, yeah, Sanji's going nuts. And the whole point was that it was leading up to this moment where Sanji had to decide between, do I want even more power? Do I want the raid suit? Or do I want to try and stay myself? And then Sanji had to make a decision, so playing off all the character stuff for Whole Cake Island. So I think as Sanji fans, you probably get everything you want there. Probably the one thing that Sanji fans would probably still want is something like a Mr. Prince-esque moment, or Enies Lobby opening the gates moment, or NL damaging Maxim type moment, something where his brains and his smarts really come into play. So Sanji's actually gotten really, really great focus throughout Whole Cake Island and Wano. And he's the only Straw Hat, I guess, besides Robin, the only Straw Hat that really had like a good character moment in Wano and all of Onigashima. Obviously, with the destruction of the raid suit. Everybody else was kind of just chilling. Robin also, I think, during her fight, good stuff. Supreme Pirate King says, we could limit the double page spreads to maybe battle-related double page spreads. I don't know. Lol, kind of still a big task. It depends, because I really like the just artwork double page spreads, you know? I would love to do something like best drawn panels in one. Best spreads in One Piece. Because there's so many you could do. Like, even just when Oda draws locations, right? Arriving at a location, that's always an exciting moment, because you get the big spread of what it looks like, right? You get to see all of Water 7. You get to see all of Skypiea. You get to see all of Ryugyu Palace, right? There's so many things that just fall under the really cool location sort of category. Robin greater than Lanji, Jacuzzi clutch. Yeah, Robin, I shouldn't even underplay that. Robin had really good stuff, I think, in her fight. And Robin did she did, I guess you could say, need it more. And it's funny because, like, Robin and Sanji, were talking about both of them. They're the ones that, like, they traded off in that Black Maria battle. So both of their moments kind of started with each other, right? So Sanji asking Robin for help. So a bit of character development coming off of Whole Cake Island, leading into Robin expressing why she's had to change, or like what she wants to do now for the Straw Hats, and finally being able to express that over the course of the Black Marian fight, and her new motivations. And then that leads into Sanji having his little character conflict with the raid fail, or wow, Freudian slip, I guess there. Said the raid fail. Raid suit. That's actually kind of crazy. So the to be fair, I've had to say raid fail like 50 times throughout the stream. You know, Sanji's little conflict with deciding between the raid suit, potentially terming a Durma, stuff like that, versus sticking true to his values. So it actually wrote the Robin and Sanji storylines like a little bit intertwined right there. Second. Sorry. First name, last name says, Morge, you said you could only imagine a final chapter in Lockdown being Luffy's execution. I don't know if that'd be final chapter. I don't know if that'd be final chapter. I guess it might be final. I don't know if it'd be final chapter if there's some epilogue chapter or something like that. He says, how about as the place for the final party? Oh man, Lockdown as the place for the final party versus place for Luffy's execution. Here's the thing. Luffy says a very, very important quote, and like Oda devotes a full page to it, right? So you know it's an important quote. It's just not it's not just a throwaway quote. Oda devotes a full page to it. In Udon, right? Luffy says, I'm the one who's going to decide when and where I die, right? I'm the one who decides that, right? So Oda devotes a full page to Luffy saying that. To me, very clearly sets up Luffy following through on that at some point in the story. Otherwise, it's kind of just random. So I think that Luffy will get the bit. Look, we know there's going to be a big party, right? We know there's going to be a big party. Whether or not that's like Luffy's big dream, like Archer has said, that Luffy's big dream is basically the world's biggest party. I could see it. I just wouldn't personally like it. But I think I could definitely see that being his big dream, right? I think we still get that party no matter what once the story is concluded, once One Piece is found, once the world is saved, etc. I think Luffy still chooses to end his life where he does at the execution stand. Anime Dimension says, Part 1. When Roger Pirates reached Laugh Tale, they learned true history and also future events because Odin referred to Toki about it. And also Roger said he would love to live in Joy Boy's time, referring to future Joy Boy than past. I don't know if he was referring to future. I don't know if they can see the future. I don't know if Toki could see the future or anything like that. I think it was more so like Roger saying like they were too early because certain things like Shirahoshi coming of age, things like that had to happen. Anime Dimension continues, Part 2, because Rayleigh said, if he tells the truth about the world, then conclusion will be different, referring to Avengers, where Strange tells if he tells what happened, it wouldn't happen. I get what you're saying there, but I don't think he didn't say that exactly. He didn't say that like if I tell you that'll change things, but rather really was saying it's better if you learn yourselves rather than I bias you, because you might come to a different conclusion. So it's like your interpretation of the true history, etc., and what you have to do might be different than if I were to bias you by telling you what I think it basically is, right? So not so much like I'm changing the future by telling you this, but rather like you come away with your own interpretation. Anime Dimension continues and says, I don't mean to say they know it was Luffy all along. When more Luffy comes closer to One Piece, the more it points he is the one. Yeah, I guess I will agree with you that basically it's leaning towards Luffy, right place, right time, right person, who's able to kind of pick up the mantle. Whereas even with somebody like Roger, a few things were off at that point in time. Like the timeline didn't line up for Roger properly. Groovy Zeno says, any predictions on who Tenguyama Hitetsu is waiting for? He mentions this at the beginning of Wano. No, I do not have predictions on that. I don't have predictions on that. I did mention that as one of the missing loose threads in the latest video that I dropped. Right? The latest video that I dropped? I'm pretty sure I said that. Yep. And that's one of the things I drop at the end of that video, is many other missing loose threads in Wano. Keenan says, dude, I've been in this Wendy's drive-thru for 40 minutes now, and you have been absolutely carrying my time spent in this line, so I'm not bothered. I am happy to hear that because I genuinely sympathize with that. Because where I used to live, so some days, just work wise, right? Work wise, uh, time would get fucked up, no time for dinner, whatever. It's really late, 11 p.m., 12 p.m., not 12 p.m. You guys know what I mean. 11 p.m. plus, right? That range, I'm like, fuck, the only place open near me is McDonald's. So I go to McDonald's, and what do you know? When there's only one place that's going to be open that late, you're obviously not going to be the only person who has that brilliant idea to show up there. So I get to McDonald's, which is supposed to be like fast drive through, and it's fucking, it's just the longest fucking line. And because it's so late and it's a McDonald's and the employees don't have that much like, it's fucking late, they don't care. Nothing on them. It sucks to work at McDonald's. I get it, but they have no incentive to keep the line sort of moving, right? So they kind of just they take it definitely way slower once it's like really late and people are just like there's nowhere else you can kind of go. So they don't really kind of like fast food becomes a very loose term at that point in time. And some of the worst experiences were like I'd be there, right, waiting in line, drive through, slowly moving, slowly moving. 20 minutes in, somebody would just be like, an employee would basically be like, okay, we're closed now. And it's like, what the fuck? Like, it says you guys are open 24/7. They're like, nah, we're just closed now. And it's like, fuck, well, what time do you close? It's like, well, it depends on the day, which means basically whenever they decide they want to go home, that's when McDonald's closes. Maybe that was just my McDonald's, but that's what it was. So, what were we talking about? Wendy's. Yeah. I sympathize. Problem is, McDonald's is so good that it's okay. Luz Vasquez says, listen to King Gizzard and Lizard Wizard. What the fuck does that, what does that mean? What? What the fuck? What does that mean? Are you high? Listen to King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. What? What are you talking? What? Does anyone understand what the fuck this means? Who are these people? Raftel King says, once the world government topples and the world is saved and liberated, how would Oda deal with the problem of evil pirates still rampaging around? You see the Navy just changing in leadership. So it's been suggested that the world government will still exist. I think the revolutionaries talked about that. It's more so like the system needs to be better, right? So it's not just going to be like evil pirates rampaging around. So if the world government is still going to exist but just reformed, right? With perhaps people like Vivi from the new generation taking up positions at the top of that, of the new government, making it maybe more democratic, etc. Get rid of the celestial noble shit, right? If that's the direction that it's going, then yeah, there'll always be bad guys, right? You're never going to eliminate bad guys from the world. There'll always be evil pirates, but there's probably a better navy. You won't have a Kaino at the top of it, right? Maybe fucking Kobe, Fujitora, along those lines of people. Smoker, stuff like that. Andrew Connor says, is Kid going to betray Law and Luffy and Wano? I don't think so. I don't think Kid is that type of person. I don't think, like, Kid is the type of person that, like, as much as you, it's so tricky because we haven't really, like, we know Kid does cool shit, right? We know Kid does cool shit. It's just that, like, cool, like, really strong strength of character type things, right? So, for example, like, Kaido dropped in front of all of the supernovas, Kid, Hawkins, Apu, right? He dropped in front of the three of them, told them to surrender, right? Apu had betrayed them and set them up like that, right? Kid says no when he actually just tries to take on Kaido straight up, right? Killer joins in, even though there's 0% chance of victory according to Hawkins, right? So Kid does do the bolder, more proud, like king type action that you would do, right? And that's why he's a Conqueror's Haki type character. That's why he's, in theory, a good rival to Luffy. So Kid does that and gets fucked up, right? Same thing with Kid rampaging into the Big Mom Pirates territory, taking what he wants and leaving, right? That's cool. Kid trying to take on the red hair, like Kid out of all of the supernovas, he's taken on every single one of the Yonko except for Blackbeard, right? So he's taken on 3 of the Yonko so far. And he's not backed down from any of them. He's continued to go at them, stuff like that. Like, he's done cool stuff. It just doesn't feel that way as much on screen from what we've gotten to see. So there's a bit of a disparity there, but basically what I'm getting at is that Kid is not the type of character, in my opinion, that betrays others. He, like the way that he reacted to Apu's betrayal and just the way that he views people who do things like that, like, I don't think he's that type of character. He's not that type of character that, like, does these underhanded type of things. I think he tries to take people on straight up. Luz Vasquez, no, we just covered your comment. Phantom Greyfire says, miss super chat from Hamda Jaled. Sorry, I think Zoro will be I think Zoro will be up by 1050. Man, I think we'll be in Kaido's flashback during chapter 1050. So maybe not right then. Maybe a little bit afterwards. I was almost perfect with supers. I almost got there. I think that's the only one I missed. I think that's good. Okay, so Bebop says, what do you think is Oda's strength and weakness as a writer? Oda has too many strengths. Too many strengths for his own good, perhaps. Maybe that's his weakness as a writer. Too many strengths for his own good that he just goes crazy with ideas and trying to fit a lot, right? Maybe that's it, but he does such a good job of it for the most part. What can you even say? I'd say Oda's like strengths. I've done so many videos on what I think Oda's strengths are. Like I could just go off. I think in terms of like powerful, raw, hard-hitting, emotional moments of like, that just make you cry over things that you would not expect you would cry over. That's for me personally probably number one. That or story structure. I think Oda's broad macro story structure and how he thinks of everything, like how what a character storyline is going to be from here to like all the way in the distance, how a plot thread here is going to connect to these plot threads here, and how all of that spider webbing is going to connect in the distance, how these themes are going to build on these themes, and this arc is going to be about this arc, which mirrors that arc, how all of that is going to lead to the like broad long-term story structure and planning. I think he's the best at that. Just general creativity in terms of his world building, blah blah blah, stuff we all know about. Like I could just go on and on. I think Oda's brilliant in so many, like he just has this huge web of ideas that all just fit together and link up and so like organically build on one another over time. That's big. And then in the micro sense, he's so good at the strong, hard-hitting, emotional stuff. He knows. I don't know if you guys heard that. It's a really loud car that went by. But he knows what to do in like a 5-chapter backstory that will get the reader crying basically no matter what. Those are his biggest strengths, right? Like, but he's got a million other biggest weaknesses. I think personally is basically the small stuff. He's like, it's so weird because he's so good at the big stuff, and he's generally really good at like the emotional stuff, and a lot of like the really hype stuff too. I think Oda has a knack for knowing what makes things hype. That like it sounds stupid and generic, but Oda really has a knack for it, and he does it in a way that like I think a lot of other shonen mangaka should aspire towards. I could keep listing things, right? But if we're talking just weaknesses, I would say like it's just the small stuff. Oda's really lax on the small stuff in a way that's like hard to describe, but it's just like sometimes he'll just do. Do you guys know what I mean? Like sometimes he'll just force some weird stuff in that doesn't really need to be there, or he'll think like I want to spend some time on this for no reason, like we don't really need to be there. Or like he'll be like, fuck it, this character has amnesia now. Like Big Mom just gets amnesia. Like it's just riddled with small little things, and I think that's come out more over the course of like, I think, in my opinion, arcs that are very large, like a Dressrosa or Wano. When I say large, I mean with many, many characters and plot threads running, so especially Wano. I think that comes out more just like little stuff that like, again, godlike at so many important things, right? But then there will be little stuff, maybe as a product of the week-to-week writing and like having to handle so many characters and threads, but just random little shit that's just like, this is kind of stupid, or like, why would you do that? Stuff that like even the average person would be like, this seems like a bad idea, or this seems like kind of dumb, or this didn't really go anywhere. Certain random small little things, or like some logical, like random illogical things, like that just don't make sense, because overall as a writer, like he's the best storyteller that I've ever read overall. It's just random little things that I'm just like, what? Why? And sometimes it's stuff that like I wouldn't even think of myself till it's pointed out, and it's like, oh fuck, I don't know why that happened. Like like Oden, when he was in jail after being captured by Kaido, he gave Enma and Ami no Habakiri to Toki, right, to pass on to Momo and Hiyori, right? Then it's pointed out, like, people are roasting this, like, why did he have his swords in prison? Why would they even let him have his swords, his legendary swords, with him in his cell, so that he can then get? Why was nobody, like, he's just able to give them over to Toki? That made no sense. So random little stuff, that's kind of the thing with Oda. There's just like lots of random little stuff that comes up. And some of those things maybe stack and stack, and it's just like, what is this? Okay, Anime Dimension says, refer above super chat. I'm talking about Odin knows future events, telling Toki about Dawn, and he tells Kaido defeat, and he knows Joy Boy's return. Yeah, okay, so I imagine that there's like prophecies and stuff, like kind of the same way Shirahoshi's made prophecies, so there's probably been, not Shirahoshi, Charlie, right? So I imagine back from the Ancient Kingdom, whoever was writing down the poneglyphs and everything like that, right, there were prophecies as to what would happen at a certain period of time after a certain number of events came together and timed up. So you're right, I do think Odin did know, in that sense, like I thought you were saying Toki could tell the future. I don't think Toki could tell the future, but Odin knowing future events and telling Toki about the Dawn and their feet and Joy Boy's return, yeah, I think that is very likely. I do think you're right about that. Sorry, let me scroll. Disaster Master says, listen to Burritos, Inspiration Point, Fork Balloon Sports, Cards in the Spokes, Automatic Biographies, Kites, Kung Fu Trophies, Banana Peels we've slipped on, and eggshells we've tiptoed over. Is this what this stream has just become now? Bunch of weird stream of consciousness shit. Tuna Seb says, what the fuck is the point of the Tequila Wolf Bridge? I'm excited to find that out myself. I love the One Piece world because, like, you'll forget more shit than other... like, there's more stuff in the One Piece world that you'll just forget than, like, other series have in, like, their entire world. Like, I just don't, like... There's just so much stuff. If we could talk to Tequila Wolf, we could talk so many other things. Where are we at? Tuna sub? No, we covered you. Mugiwara says, nice playing that fart off as a loud car going by. Future side sound effect. Yeah, all right, there's just a random bridge says Boo Boo One's network. I don't know. If I had to guess on Tequila Wolf, I would say like if I had to guess, there's not really a good guess because it's just like, why would you need a giant bridge? Unless something about East Blue specifically is important. I don't know. There's not a good guess for Tequila Wolf as far as I know, and I've never seen a good theory about Tequila Wolf. Yeah, like the stream, guys. I feel like we've forgotten that incentive. Like the stream. Get the likes to 1K. Phantom Griffar says, will the OP live action be better than the Last Airbender movie? Okay, at least let's hope it's better than the Last Airbender movie. That's like the lowest bar you could possibly imagine. Katakuri Charlotte says, will Wano end in 20 chapters? I don't think so, personally. Mystic Disc says, what's your guess on the Whole Cake Land intruders? That's funny. That hadn't been brought up till now. I mean, I think it's the Blackbeard Pirates. I think everybody's kind of had the Blackbeard Pirates going to Whole Cake on their radar for some time now. So let's hope it's the Blackbeard Pirates. That'd be really interesting. Anuj Agrawal says, what do you believe in the raid failing over Luffy losing... What do you believe in the raid failing over Luffy losing again plus dramatic tension with wheels breaking / deaths in the raid itself besides Hawkins? I don't get what this means. Over Luffy losing again plus dramatic... Oh, okay, you're saying we could just have all that in the raid itself? In the raid itself. I think that'd be great. If that happens, that'd be great. Like, I think I talked about this even earlier in this stream. You can have all of that without, like, the raid failing. So I think that'd be good. It's just, I personally think that the raid would fail. But if it doesn't and this other stuff happens, that's really good as well. That's why I was saying, like, with 1042, ending of 1042, and particularly ending at 1042 and the way 1043 started, it almost seemed it was heading that direction. But Oda quickly made sure, like, okay, no dramatic tension. We're done with that. Luffy's back up. He's fighting. And the way Luffy lost that, he didn't actually lose that, right? That was, like, pretty much explicitly spelled out for us as being a false hollow victory. Luffy didn't really lose. Kaido didn't actually beat Luffy right then. So to me, it's basically, okay, clearly setting up for a bigger, more actual, meaningful Luffy loss, where Luffy is defeated, other people see it, spirits are challenged, faith, etc. Everything that the arc has been talking about so far. So whether that or not that leads to the raid failing in general, versus just being like a very rough low point for the raid, right, that then continues on into Act 4, etc., I'd be totally cool with that. I'd be cool with that. I think that'd be good. Biba says, you ate the corner where the tiger was standing, no? I don't know what that means. What? What does that mean? You ate the corner where the tiger was standing. I ate the corner where the... I saw the corner where the tiger was standing? I didn't see a tiger standing, so I don't know what that means. The part here says, Morge, I know you play Melee, but if you did an Ultimate stream, I'd be down. I managed to JV3 Nairo on his last Iron Man run. I'm not awful? What? I'm not playing against you. I'm bad at Ultimate. I tried playing it somewhat, because I was like, this is the game that's more popular nowadays, so let me try this. Then I got mad and I just quit. I mean, not really. Like, I thought Ultimate's actually a very fun game. It's just, I guess I came in feeling entitled, because, like, I've played Melee, right? So I came in basically being like, okay, I should get Ultimate pretty easily. Not like, because, oh, Melee is harder or whatever, but kind of just like, I've played Smash, right? So I'm like, okay, translates pretty straightforward. I should be good at this pretty quick. So I was like, okay, let me just get to Elite Smash right away. I didn't get to Elite Smash right away. And then I was just like, okay, I don't want to play. I'm, you know, that meme of dropping Woody. I don't want to play with you anymore. I basically went like that. I just came in very entitled. I was like, all right, this will be easy. And I was like, okay, this isn't easy. It seems like people do actually, like, to be good at Ultimate, you do actually have to know some stuff about your character and, like, have setups and, like, have some combos you can go into and stuff like that. And I was like, I don't want to learn that. Ward Galore says, King Giz and what's that thing? LW, that's something. Okay, you're talking about that stuff that other guy was talking about. Is an awesome band from Australia. I don't believe you, and I'm not going to listen to them. Hawkeye says, I reread Kaido's intro, and Hawkins said there was a legend of an island in the sky that monsters live. Do you think that might be where Onis resided? Oh, that's actually a really cool idea, that Onis resided there. But I figured that Hawkins was more so referencing, like, kind of, you know, the old sort of stuff that was shown around Skypiea, like, oh, there's an island in the sky, and the first thing we see is these giant angel-like beings in their shadows and stuff like that. I assume that, you know, just playing off the existing little scares and myths that we've had of Skypiea. Mr. Crescent says, think the Straw Hat will ever go to the other blues? I mean, I think that all of Marijua, etc. will be destroyed. And I think all of Marijua will be destroyed, Red Line will be destroyed, so I think all the other blues will naturally intersect and connect. But I don't think the Straw Hats will go to the other blues. But a lot of the Straw Hats were bounced around to the other blues anyway, right? During the time skip. Phantom Greyfire says, I'm once again asking for you to find a better stream layout that fits the chat box. Phantom Greyfire, I will add that to my list of to-dos for tomorrow. I don't add a lot to my list of to-dos, but this is making it on there. Oh, fun fact, I should be getting a new laptop tomorrow, so my stream quality should be much better starting tomorrow. Great Kate says, I've played Smash since I was like 5 years old. It never really hooked me enough to make me want to get good. Guilty Gear Strive, though. ... Different games for different people. Guilty Gear I have not played. I have not played Guilty Gear, but I've seen and heard a lot of good things about it. Dragonfire says, I think Rumble Balls force temporary mastery over Devil Fruit, so Awaken users like Luffy aren't affected. Maybe. Chopper can use points without Rumble now except Monster. I see what you're saying. Yeah, that'd be, that's possible. Definitely possible. I just think that, like, if all characters, like, could start eating Rumble Balls, like all Zoans, then, it just opens the door for so many characters to just become busted. Like, imagine if Kaido got to eat a Rumble Ball. Like, I don't think I would like to see Luffy beating Kaido thanks to a Rumble Ball if, like, Kaido doesn't get to eat a Rumble Ball either, you know? Disaster Master says, Burrito's Inspiration Point, aka Schmappin' Schmaz, is an album by Cap'n Jazz, the OG Widmest emo band. Ignoring and moving on. Mugiwara Luffy. Oh, wow. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, man. One Piece. Greatest fiction story ever told or greatest world building story ever told? I don't think it is the greatest world building story ever told because, as I understand, there are like fantasy novels and stuff like that, like the Sanderson books, like the Cosmere or whatever, that go even further than One Piece does. So fair enough. Greatest fiction story ever told. I think that it's you you need to let it play out right by the end of it because I think all of One Piece's best stuff and like the full vision will be apparent at the end of the story, and only then can you kind of judge. Right now, like there's, in my opinion, there's potential for One Piece to have like the grandest and most tightly thought out story from start to finish of any fantasy epic. I think that's very possible. Uh, but there's still so much that has to work well and come together for the end phase of that. Like so much rests on basically this last 10-20% of the series. So way too hard to say, right? I'd say the ideas are there. The ideas are there, potential there. Yeah, that's my take on it right now. Eon Wheeler says, I think Tequila Wolf is just a waste of resources in order to punish people for not joining the world government, like how the Germans treated the Jewish people in World War II. Yeah, but some sort of purpose, right? Some sort of purpose for it. If it were to have a purpose, I feel like it's got to fit into something that we already know about, Like, I don't know. 8 Gates Production says, do you think we'll ever see really strong bounty hunters to justify all those insane bounty numbers? Can't imagine Johnny and Yosaku hunting Yonkus. Yonkos. I don't think that we'll ever see strong bounty hunters just because there's no real nice, neat place for them to fit into the story at this point. The bounty numbers, maybe they just go to the Marines that catch them. I don't know. Bounty numbers just become for show past a certain point. Wart Galore says, do we know why Chopper has so many forms? Is Rumbleball. Right, it's Rumbleball makes that happen. Phantom Greyfire also says Malazan might be higher on the world building. Yeah. Yeah. I've heard that as well. Eris says, what do you think Who's Who would have to say about the Nika Awakening and his future as a character in the series? I think I responded to this question last week as well. I don't think Who's Who, I don't think we know enough about to even guess what his dialogue would be. Because he existed pretty much solely to explain that the Gum Gum fruit and the Nika sun god is a thing. The Gum Gum fruit is potentially important, and the Nika sun god is a thing. I think I don't know what dialogue he would say to find out that they were one and the same. Again, if I had to say what I guessed last week, it'd probably be something like, wow, I can't believe it. Something like that. Aslan says, I don't think Dragon is actually strong. Lots of people are saying Dragon has the Rain God fruit, but I think his ability is to inspire people under his cause, like Luffy. He's the most wanted man because he knows something. I think Dragon is strong just because it's the trope. It's just kind of expected, right? Like it would be almost disappointing if Dragon doesn't turn out to be strong. It's just like Garp was something special. Luffy is obviously Luffy. Like you would just expect Dragon to be strong, Adamia Goyal says, Morge, what do you think about Kaido being someone who failed their way up? He is strong, but not as strong as people make him out to be, like King from One Punch Man. I think that'd be remarkably disappointing if he's like King from One Punch Man. If you know anything about One Punch Man, King is like legitimately not a strong guy. He just has been given that reputation based on coincidental events. I think Dragon's story like carries so much weight if he is actually like it would be very disappointing if it turns out to be like a complete fraud and not actually a strong character because it's like what have we been reading this entire time to see Luffy beat somebody that's been built up and we've seen Luffy like losing to him over and over and having to get stronger and stronger. It becomes kind of meaningless if it's like, okay, that guy's actually not that strong at all. Phantom Greyfire says, Hamda, Jaled, more just skipping only your supers this stream. I'm sorry, I didn't, what did you say? I didn't see it. I didn't see it. Oh, wait, no, I see it. Hamda Jaled says, you think Onigashima was always in Wano, or was it flown in like it is now? I think, okay, so at one point I thought it was flown in. But with recent theories and stuff that I've read, I'm now of the opinion that Onigashima was it was the skull of the continent puller that pulled all of the islands potentially that make up Wano together, and that's just his skull that's there basically. So I don't think that I don't think it was flown in. Hawkeye says, what the fuck happened to Denjiro? Last appearance was chapter 1009. I thought that Hiyori and Denjiro were basically planning a way to execute Orochi together, but that's not actually what happened. You know? That's not actually what happened. Like, at the end of the day, it seems more like Hiyori just figured it out herself. Like, I'm just going to trap him like this and do it like that. So, Denjiro, I have actually no idea. Like, I would love to see what happened. Because with Raizo, like, everybody's had their little things of, like, I want to do, like, I have this little extra plan or something like that. Raizo's preparations. Done, right? Actually, I guess that was the only thing. Yeah, the only things, I guess, left right now are whatever the fuck Denjiro is going to do. Hiyori versus Orochi. Maybe those two things are tied together. Maybe Denjiro just comes in and chops off Orochi's head. Yeah, I think we have to wait and see. MNA says, has Kaido lived up to your expectations? I think Kaido is my favorite villain in One Piece so far. It depends how the next section of this battle plays out. Yeah. Phantom Griff versus Morge, what laptops are you getting, and what excuse will you use for the stream failing on it? All right, I'll tell you guys right now, because this is a good laptop. The laptop I have right now is like $400. So the laptop that I'm getting is like a big investment. It's a big investment. Hold on. It is a, what is it? What's it called? An Asus G733 5900 HX. It's something like that. It's a good laptop, I think. I didn't even pick it out myself. My editor picked it out and he was like, buy this. And I was like, but it costs money. And he was like, no, just buy it. So you guys can't even roast me for making a bad choice. It was taken out of my hands. Ian Mueller says, Denjiro is giving Ashura Doji a pep talk. Ashura Doji, the deceased Ashura Doji. Definitely not deceased. Keenan says Denjiro is dead, just like Zoro. Yeah, Denjiro just died off screen. He was killed by a fodder. Stabbed him in the back. Kairodin says, my current thought for Denjiro is he's whatever shadowy figure healed the scabbards after they fought Kaido. No, because Denjiro was one of those scabbards that was healed at that time, right? Am I crazy? Denjiro was healed with them? Right? Am I crazy? Aren't we assuming right now that that shadowy figure must have been Hiyori. If you want to be tinfoil, you can say it's Toki or something like that. Fire says, Morge's favorite video game. I'm not a big gamer. I don't play a lot of games because I did not have games growing up, basically. I was not in a household where my parents would purchase me games. For the majority of my life, the only system I owned was a GameCube. And even when I got the GameCube in like 4th grade, and even at the time that I got the GameCube, the GameCube was already considered the worst of the consoles to get, because at that point in time, people had the PlayStation or the Xbox, right? And then from that point on, I just fell behind everybody else was getting their PlayStation 3s. What came next? So at the time, people had PlayStation 2, Xbox, and GameCube. Past that, people got the Wii, they got their PlayStation 3s, they got the Xbox 360s. I got none of that, right? Then, after that, I think like PS4 was becoming a thing. Xbox One becoming a thing. It wasn't until high school where my parents got me a Wii, right? So solidly halfway through high school, my parents got me a Wii, and this was at a point where the Wii was all nobody fucking wanted a Wii at that point in time. Nobody wanted a Wii in like 2011 or 12 or whatever. I think it was 2011 I got a Wii. Nobody wanted it at the time. My parents just remembered from when I was a kid. I was like, please upgrade me from the GameCube. Everybody else has like real games and stuff like that. Upgrade me from the GameCube. And like 10 years later it clicked in for them. They're like, okay, let's get the boy something for his birthday or something, or Christmas. I don't remember what it was. They got me a Wii. And I was like, I don't fucking want a Wii now, but I had to pretend I was really happy about it. Anyway, my favorite game is Melee because I didn't have a lot of games when I was a kid, so the only games I could play were, yeah, I played Smash when I was a kid. Then as I grew older, I got back into Melee when I found out I had a more competitive scene. I played a lot of Super Smash Bros. Brawl actually. That has a more nostalgic place in my heart because my neighbors had Brawl. My neighbors had Brawl. Might be watching the stream. I don't know. My neighbors had Brawl, and I would go over to their house all the time and play Brawl. Steven Braceno says, for the raid feeling, maybe Raizo's water deactivates Tama's ability and it coincides with Kaido's roar along with the Tobiropo. I wouldn't be surprised if Tama's ability is deactivated in some way, and it could potentially be just through Kaido's roar alone, if we really want to throw out ideas there, depending on how impactful Oda wants to make it. Andrew Connor says, theories on SSG possibly successful smiles. Oh, wait, what? SSG successful smiles? That'd be hilarious. If Kaido's made this whole shitty army of the the smile thing is so ass the more you think about it. It's just like, if you it's like literally a 10% success rate. 10% success rate, so it basically makes 90% of your forces pretty much insane and robs them of their emotions. So 90% failure rate, they go insane. The 10% success rate, it turns them into these like weird mutant weirdos that are basically like 10% stronger than average fodder. It's just the most bizarre, and Kaido really, really liked it. He was like, this is the system that's gonna make us take over the world. Like, if you backtrack to something like Moria, like, yeah, Moria was also building an army, right? Actually, that's kind of interesting. Kaido and Moria both building their armies, right? Armies they were convinced would help them take over the world. But Moria is like, even though it was like way back in pre-time skip and Moria was way weaker, like his thought process was way more reasonable. It's like, okay, let's find like some actually really strong bodies, like bodies of famous great warriors, like bodies like the Samurai Ryuma, right? Or Captain John, right? And these Rocks Pirates figures and stuff like that. Like these really powerful characters, right? Find them, make them soldiers, right? Create an army of super powerful soldiers and take over the world. Oars, the fucking continent puller, right? Moria's army, right? Actually, legitimately a lot of potential there. If Moria got to keep building that over years and years, like just an army of super strong soldiers, I mean, that's a good army to have. Obviously, you need stronger executives and such. Like Kaido has Tobiropo Calamities and obviously himself. But like, conceptually, like when Moria was building, that had some promise as an army. If you want a full nice squad of like fighters and soldiers, that's right. Kaido's thing is so shit. It's just the gifters are shit. They are ass. They have never once been portrayed as like actually useful in any sense or like actually like a serious problem. Like they were in maybe small moments, but for the most part they're pretty much straight up gags. And Kaido's built all of his resources he's dumped into this weird gag army. So long story short, the SSG with successful smiles. Look, if you got successful smiles with like 100% success rate, yeah, I think that would be interesting. That'd be cool to see. That's got potential. 8 Gates Protection says, what got you into One Piece? Were you a weeb in high school? I got into One Piece from the 4Kids dub. I was watching it when I was in 3rd grade and got back from school. So I got into One Piece then, and I would watch it basically period. Like that was probably my favorite little show to because I didn't watch any other anime then as a kid. I don't think I even recognized One Piece as an anime at that point in time. I just liked it, right? I liked it. I liked the characters. I liked the the style. I like the fact that they devoted a full episode to fights. Dragon Ball Z I was never that much into because like I don't know, like it was pure. One Piece had a bit more whimsy and like just creativity. It felt like to what was going on, right? It wasn't just like two characters randomly fighting with Super Saiyan powers or whatever. It was like, oh, there's a bit of a setup here. Like Luffy's fighting this Don Krieg guy on this boat, and there's like other characters around, and like Luffy's having to navigate these obstacles. I don't know. Just the first episode I saw was like the Buggy episode where Buggy already has Luffy in the cage, and Zoro shows up to free Luffy, and that whole scene basically had me hooked. So I got into One Piece right then. Then I, because I'm a kid, like I'm not like really looking up stuff online to watch. At least in that era, like 8-year-old kids didn't really do that. So at a certain point, like maybe like the time One Piece came on shifted or something. For whatever reason, I stopped watching it. It stopped coming on around the time that I was trying to watch it or whatever. Maybe it's because I went to middle school. I don't know. And then I got back into it. So I like was a mini One Piece fan as like a kid for like a year or so, right? And would watch it when I could. Then around middle school, I was like, wait, what about that show One Piece? Let me actually try and go watch that. So I actually would like look it up online and like watch the episodes. And that around then it was the easiest to find Japanese episodes subbed. So I just found myself watching the sub version and liking that better than what I was watching as a kid. Like 3 years back, still a kid, I guess. And then I basically caught all the way up. I think I caught all the way up to One Piece basically around the time Enies Lobby was still going on in the anime. So around then I kind of started shifting and skipping ahead, reading manga chapters, and then eventually became a manga reader purely. And then from then on I just became a manga reader. Was I a weeb in high school? I don't think I fell into that category because like I kept my anime tastes and like the stuff I like. I like in high school, like around that, you just didn't talk about anime publicly. You just didn't. So the fact that I liked that, I kept that. I didn't share that with any of my friends or anything like that around that time. The friends from my neighborhood who I grew up with, they also watched One Piece, so I could talk to them about it occasionally, but not like much. So I guess weeb in the sense that like I did watch One Piece and I've gotten into a few other basic shonen series around that time. Like I've gotten into Bleach. I'd watched Death Note, Code Geass. So I was watching anime and stuff at that point, but not like as deep as some people get in anime. Mainly I was a One Piece fan above all else. And I really didn't make that open or share that with anybody. B-Bus says Katakuri and Marco versus King and Sabo. Katakuri and Marco versus King and Sabo. I take Katakuri and Marco. Yeah. I take Katakuri and Marco, definitely. Because look, Marco was doing fine against King and Queen. He was never going to beat them, but he was doing fine against King and Queen. Obviously, Sabo's stronger than Queen, but like it's just, I think Marco's proved the most out of all of these characters, and he's just got the best showings across the board out of all these characters. And Marco versus King, portrayal-wise, like Oda was clearly portraying Marco above King. So as the only character that seems to have a solid argument against being above one of the other characters, I'd just take Marco's team. Keenan says, "Gotta go, Morge, but for when I listen back for the VOD, please let me know how you think Oda is going to handle this whole Zoro thing, and if he'll actually have to fight Sanji. It's looking like he won't. I don't think Zoro will have to fight Sanji over this stuff. I really don't. But I do think that Zoro is going to be very important for the final section of the arc, whatever that may be. I think like the fact that Zoro is going through this sort of death, rebirth sort of thing that Luffy similarly did is a big deal. I don't think Zoro is necessarily going to... How it plays out exactly, in my opinion, I think we could be set up for a really, really good leadership section for Zoro, especially if Luffy is defeated by Kaido in the next battle, right? I think there's a reason that Zoro has not woken up yet. I think Zoro will have to take on a lot of responsibility in a very short period of time, coming up pretty soon. That's my opinion on it. I don't think it involves fighting Sanji, though, in my opinion. Yeah, Phantom Greyfire says looking to getting the laptop tax assessment or tax write-off, etc. Yeah, definitely all that stuff. I mean, even these things you see on the wall, I have to buy better background stuff in general. That's next on the list. I have to buy a lot of that stuff. That's all going to be tax write-offs. Dresser says Morge still has pretty basic manga taste, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, that was the anime that I watched. Like, I've read much more manga than I've watched anime at this point. Like, if I were to say my favorite manga series, I don't think I'd like follow anything that's super obscure. I mean, there's like trashy, shitty manga that I've like read in the past that's like, I guess you would call obscure, like, I don't know, like Terraformers and shit like that. But in terms of like my favorite series, obviously One Piece, but then other series that are also many people's favorite series, like Berserk, like, well, Vinland maybe fell off for me, but Hunter x Hunter, JoJo's, stuff like that. Stuff that like many other people obviously enjoy. But my take is also, well, you enjoy them for a reason. Like, many people enjoy them for a reason. Chainsaw Man, I think, is again the series that I'm looking forward to the most these days. But it's not like Chainsaw Man is some obscure manga anymore. Not by any means. I think series that I like that are probably not quite as popular is probably something like Gantz is one of my low-key favorites. Oh, actually, I bought a Gantz volume recently. It's right here. If I had my bookshelf in the back, I'd put it. Gantz, I even like Battle Royale quite a bit. Sorry, one sec, scrolling. Okay, Ian Miller says, when Zola wakes up, he won't be himself and Sanji will have to fight him instead of the other way around. Is that really what people are pushing for that? They want Zoro to fight Sanji right now? I don't think either of them are fighting each other. Eras, thanks a lot. Do you think Hawkins will ever make an emotionally driven bet against Kaido rather than using his usual tarot predictions? I can see his general outlook being changed after losing the killer, but I can't analyze story for shit. Look, I mean, my opinion, like, I think with Hawkins' character, right, and the amount of times he's been shown to basically always bet with his predictions, right? He chose not to fight against Kaido back when the killer and Kid did, in the off-screen battle, because Hawkins was like, yeah, the chances of victory were 0, right? So I do think that the natural character development, if we get more focus on Hawkins, which again, I think the raid failing and there being more to the arc sets us up for things like that. I think the natural like progression or final thing for Hawkins that would really matter is a moment where Hawkins just bets not what his cards are telling him, but just has the conviction to go against that. Because that's what he's been shown throughout this arc. I think that is important. And you're right that you cite the killer fight as basically potentially showing him something different. But it would take a lot, because especially if the raid fails, think about it, if the raid fails, in theory, that might cause Hawkins to double down more. Like, yep, naturally, like at the end of the day, you guys tried really hard, but you guys couldn't do it. Kind of proves that my cards are, correct. So I think it would take quite a lot for him to, what do you call, to get there. Dresser says, I'm sorry, Morge, but Gantz is top 5 seller from WYJ of all time. Yeah, I don't know what that is. So I guess my tastes are basic. Mr. Crescent says, Ono Hana, one of the only anime to make me genuinely cry hard. Not going to look into that, though. Hamda Jaled says, I think also for that to happen, he needs to help the Alliance in some way to earn their trust. We're talking about Hawkins. I personally think that, I mean, I've talked about this in a past video, but I personally think that, like, Kid, like, I think a lot of these supernovas, like even Apu, Hawkins, etc., could find themselves on Kid's side by the end of this. Pyro says, have you watched Gintama? Yes, but only the comedy episodes. I only watch Gintama for comedy episodes. I've never watched the full story of Gintama. I've watched a lot of the comedy episodes for Gintama. For me, Gintama is purely a, what do you call? Purely a sitcom, the way I approach that series. Brian Hernandez brought up Goodbye Eri. Yeah, I think that was really good. I haven't read Fujimoto's other one-shot, but I think I will after reading Goodbye Eri. Dresser says WYJ is Weekly Young Jump, the magazine Gantz ran in. Isn't that like basically a step up from? I I guess Shonen Jump. Or am I totally wrong with that? Gamma 27 says more Strike Kingdom. I have. So I'm partway, like, no, partway is an exaggeration. I read the first Kingdom arc and I actually really liked it. But something came up kind of like timing wise that made me have to drop Kingdom for a bit. Just because I didn't get time to read it. And then, when you drop a series, I actually really, really like the first arc of Kingdom. It's probably one of my favorite. I think, it's rare that I'm pretty hooked on a series right off the bat. So I really like the first arc of Kingdom. But because I took a bit of a break, then my interest in going back to Kingdom kind of, faded away. That's just naturally what happens if you can be really hooked on something for a bit, take a break from it, then like you're not super incentivized to go back because that initial, peak in, like that initial excitement isn't quite there. But I'm sure if I go back to Kingdom at some point, then I get back into it and really get into the meat of the story. I'm sure I'll be really back all over it. Najib Mukim says Osama ranking. Osama ranking actually another really good example of that. I think I got to episode 18 of Osama ranking. Ranking of Kings for those of you who are English. And I thought ranking of Kings was really good for where I was at. It was dropping me for a couple of reasons. And I took a break from it, then not super incentivized to go back. I probably will finish it out at some point just because I'm so close to the end of the first season. Anthony Jacobs says, "What do you think of YouTubers spoiling anime watchers in the thumbnail?" I never care. Like, you ask me, I'm going to be biased. What do you think I'm going to say? I never care about anime spoilers in the thumbnail. Actually, I mean, I can just be really blunt about it here. Why would there's zero responsibility to try and prevent anime watchers from being spoiled. If you're an anime watcher, you're choosing to follow an adaptation of the series, right? I try to not spoil anybody who is a manga reader, right? So I try, if you're a manga reader, to never put something into a thumbnail that is ahead of the official release, right? So my videos, they come out basically on Tuesdays, just because that makes sure that basically everybody who needs to read the chapter will have read the chapter. Then in my mind, I can put up whatever I want in the thumbnail, right? But I'm making videos for followers of One Piece. Anime viewers are people who are choosing to not follow One Piece, but rather follow something totally different. They're following an adaptation of the series, right? It's an animated series that's adapting the original work of One Piece. Just because you're choosing to follow an adaptation doesn't mean that now I have to think about people who are choosing to not follow the real series, but follow an adaptation. It makes no sense. The simplest analogy I can put to this is something that I talked about in the One Piece, because we talked about this a little bit in the One Piece YouTubers group chat, which is I was just like, this doesn't make any sense because once the One Piece Netflix live action starts, right, that's an adaptation. Suddenly, any thumbnail I do ever will technically be spoiling people who are choosing to follow exclusively the live action, right? If any thumbnail I'm choosing to do spoils people who are following the live action, you understand how ridiculous that is? Just because some people are choosing to just follow the One Piece live action, that doesn't mean that other people shouldn't be allowed to make videos covering the actual original series. If you're choosing to follow an adaptation, then great, but you have to understand that other people are free to discuss the original series that's actively going on. So that's my take on it, Trinity of the Phoenix says, "What do you consider as the raid feeling at this point? With how many times you shifted the goalpost with some of your predictions didn't come true, how do you quantify the raid if the FC isn't destroyed?" Wait, I don't think I've shifted the goalposts. I think it's the other way around because can you give me an example of me shifting the goalposts? Because to be honest, people would come in, it's multiple times over the course of the raid where people would come in with basically trying to say the raid had failed. People saying after Luffy got thrown off the roof, people were like, "This is the raid failing, Ward was right." I said, "No, that's not it." After 1042, people were saying "This is the raid failing, Ward was right." I was like, "No, this doesn't look like it." I don't think I've ever changed the goalposts on the raid failing. I think it's been what did I say originally that I've changed now? I don't think I've changed anything on that. Ilyas El Musawi says Morge hates anime onlys. No, I mean, like, it's just like, you're following an adaptation. You're not following the same series as me. You're following an adaptation of the series that I'm following. That's just a fact, right? Again, One Piece live action. Once people are following that, like, you're choosing to follow. Yeah, it's technically still One Piece, but you're choosing to follow an adaptation of the series that I'm covering and the original work. So I'm not going to be like, suddenly, can I not make a single thumbnail that's past East Blue because there's the One Piece live action out there and people are choosing to follow an adaptation? That makes no sense. I think people like put too much in like weight on the anime. They're like the anime, like it's the other way around. It's like you have to remember the anime is not One Piece. The anime is an adaptation of the original work, which is One Piece, right? It's an adaptation. Honestly, a generally poorly made cash grab, like fucking cash grab, poorly made, low effort adaptation of this series. If you choose to watch that, great, good for you. But don't fucking hold other people, like, you can't get mad at other people for choosing to discuss the actual series of One Piece. That's ridiculous. Kivo says, what do you think about Barto and the Grand Fleet right now after seeing the card flame up? You know he saw it. Again, one of the many reasons, like, what are things that people talked about towards the beginning of this arc that they thought people would show up for? They thought supernovas would show up, other supernovas. They thought Marines would show up. They thought the Grand Fleet would show up. To me, these are all things that are very likely to happen over time, and that's like another route towards that happening. You know what I mean? Stephen Groff says you're very passionate about this topic. I am, because it just annoys me, because it's just like, it makes so little sense. Like, it just makes so little sense. Jamon Robert says, lol, it's not about discussing it, that's such a straw man. Okay, well, advertising a discussion about something that technically spoils a plot point, right? Technically spoils a plot point for you as the anime viewer, right? Guess what? If you are choosing to follow an adaptation and not the actual work, then you don't get to decide what people advertise about the actual work. It's totally different. Again, live action. The One Piece live action, One Piece anime, you have to treat those two as the same thing, right? It's just people following an adaptation of the original series of One Piece. If One Piece gets a fucking musical, a fucking, the fucking video game, whatever, it doesn't matter. Those are all adaptations, okay? My thumbnails are not responsible. I mean, they are technically responsible for spoiling you, but like, you can't say that I can't make thumbnails for people who are fans of the original work because you're choosing to follow something that's so far behind the original work. Like, that's so, what am I supposed to do with that? JJF Milez says the Game of Thrones fandom was similar before the show overtook the books. I guess the simplest way to say it is this, right? We all know the Wheel of Time series is out, right? The Wheel of Time series. That book series has been out for a long while, okay? Just because there's not, like, that series has been out for a while. People have probably been making video essays and shit like that on that book series for God knows how long. Probably there are plenty of YouTube thumbnails with, like, book characters and stuff that come in books 5, 6, 7, 8, or whatever, right? Now, just because there's a fucking Amazon TV series that came out for Wheel of Time, suddenly do all of these people who are, following the actual books and making videos on the books with characters that people from the books will recognize and characters that people who read the books are caught up to, suddenly all of those are fucking spoilers because this new Wheel of Time series just popped up and some people are choosing to just follow this adaptation? Doesn't make any sense. Jamal Robertson says, it's not about deciding what you advertise, it's about thinking about a part of the community. You can choose to or not. That's just so arbitrary, dude. That's so arbitrary. Again, like, it's just like, if they are choosing, it's a different community. Different community. If you're an anime only fan, right, you are not following the same series as me. You're watching an adaptation of a series that I follow. Different community. Like, I don't know how much more that can be clear. Again, Cowboy Bebop live action fans and Cowboy Bebop the anime fans, those are two different groups of people, right? One Piece, sure, there's a heavy overlap because plenty of people who catch up to the anime then start reading the manga. But the reality is, we're following different series here. I'm trying to see if there's any like reasonable responses about this. It's just, I don't really know what to say because like it's kind of just like, like if you're choosing to do this, which is just follow the anime, but you could be reading the manga. How is it not? It's your choice. This is your choice. Like I just don't get it. Blade 9871 pointed out there are no live action Cowboy Bebop fans, which is also a good point. I think we're just gonna see this differently at the end of the day. Probably because at the end of the day, like I'm on the YouTuber side of things. I guess some people here are anime onlys. But the reality is most of you aren't anime onlys because I think most of you read the manga. All I can say is basically like it's just an argument that's never gonna make any sense to me because you can apply this logic to like any other series and be like, hey, there's an original work, there's an adaptation that comes out later. Like, I think in any other context, no one is going to be like, hey, you can't spoil anything about the original work in a thumbnail because some people are following the adaptation. You wouldn't say that about Cowboy Bebop. You wouldn't say that about like the Wheel of Time series that's coming out. Like, I just don't get why in the manga and anime fandom, I guess, like to a degree, it's just like, well, anime onlys, those matter so much now. Like, Spy by Family just got an anime series, right? But does that mean that anybody who's been doing YouTube content on Spy by Family up to this point, right, and been doing like videos that have thumbnails with characters that are in the future or whatever, like now they have to go change all of their thumbnails because a fucking anime series just started? It just makes no sense. I think it's just something that would only make sense if you're like obviously I have to acknowledge I have my own bias, but like I think you'd have to be looking at it through a very narrow lens of just anime viewers if you're like, well, the world should cater to them rather than acknowledging the fact that like, no, this is a series that exists independent of the anime. The anime happens to exist as an adaptation. This is a separate series. Bartier says, I'm actually an anime only and was just pretending to know what Gear 5th is. I wish you wouldn't spoil it in your reviews. Shake my head. Sorry, the Partier. I didn't really know about that. It's not my fault. I swear. All right, guys. You know what I mean. Spy X Family, I don't really know how it's pronounced. It doesn't matter. Hunter by Hunter. Jamal Robertson says, it's not a have to do thing, it's a considered thing you can choose to do. I never said it's a you must do thing about the choice comes with consequences. I think that that's a fair point. It's just like, I think it's a fair point. I think it's just like, yeah, you're right. It is fair. There's nothing I can really say to that because that is fair. It's just like, well, it would be a more courteous thing to, if you can avoid spoiling certain people, you can. Where I guess I'm kind of like knuckling down and just being like, look, because I've already like, here it's one of those things where it's basically like, if you're a YouTuber, right, you content creator who covers one of these series, at some point you have to kind of make that decision of what type of content creator you want to be, right? Which is just like, you can choose like you can always bend your ethics or morals to whatever and justify it however, right? So for me, early on, as I'm like starting to build my channel, I'm being hit with like, hey, don't spoil in thumbnails and stuff. So I take that to heart and I'm like, okay, even though it would get better views or whatever, right? I'm not gonna ever do a chapter review that spoils something that happens within the chapter, right? And any video that I put out, if it's before the manga, like the official translation of that comes out, I'm not going to have a spoiler in the thumbnail of that video, right? And that's something I stuck to after I think year 1, right? So after year 1, basically I made that decision. So like as you can see, like all my chapter reviews, etc., the thumbnails that I use for that, it's just going to be a face of a character, but nothing like really spoiling anything that happens in the chapter, right? Yeah, I think I've never shown anything like a power up beforehand, anything like that, right? So it's like, okay, I've made this decision, could get more views, but it's not like, let's not spoil here. That's obviously the worst thing in this scenario, right? So then once I've made that decision, then kind of being hit with like new stuff later on, which is like, well, what about anime onlys? What about anime onlys? Then it's just like, because I've already made the decision of like, this is kind of the framework that I choose to operate in between like what I consider basically spoiling people versus not spoiling people. So I'm like, okay, what about anime only? And so I'm like, they're fucking 50 years behind us, right? They're so far behind us. And Toei doesn't do, the way they do filler and stuff like that, right? So it's just like, okay. I mean, I could argue that the fucking anime openings that they all suck off so much spoil more than any of my thumbnails ever could. Anime openings will fucking show every fucking transformation and like important plot point that's coming up in the arc. Or I could just be like, look, at a certain point, if you're that like you're following a adaptation that I don't even respect, we're not even. It's a totally different thing that you're following versus what I'm discussing, basically. So to me, I kind of already made my decision of like where I choose to cut off the spoilers, which is like I'm not going to ever spoil anybody who follows the manga. Once we start getting into this whole gray territory of like, okay, what about anime onlys? Okay, what about live action followers? It's just like I'm not gonna that doesn't extend, right? But I get the point that like if you wanted to be max courteous, max whatever, then you just try not to spoil ever for anybody, no matter what. So you can always go like 100% that direction. So I mean that's basically where I'm at. Let's see how mad people are. I don't know if people are actually mad about this. Yeah, Mr. Crescent says anime spoils the anime onlys more than OP YouTubers do with the openings, though. Yeah, I mean, like, that's... Fun fact, if I'm watching an anime, I actually I never watch the openings because I know that they have spoilers in them. There's no point in doing it. Daniel Paredes says animated adaptations are used to market the manga, not the other way around, if you take the real cynical business point of view. All right. All right. I think we did go actually 20 minutes over, which is, I guess, a sign that I was particularly passionate about this subject. Let me make sure I didn't miss any super chats. Phantom Greyfire says, miss super chat from Gary Grant. 1 out of 2. Hey, Morge, been watching One Piece since 1999. Oh, you didn't have to split this up into 2 supers. What's the other super? What's the other half? Fuck. What's the other half? Okay. I guess there is another half. Maybe I can scroll and find it. Otherwise, I'll probably call it the end of the day for this stream. All right. I think that's basically it. All right, everybody. Oh, wait. 2 out of 2. Second part. It's very good. I've started the okay, so this is continued from Gary Grant. It's very good. I've started reading Marshall Peak. It's just as good, if not better. It's called Marshall Peak. You should check it out. You will like. All right. I have to check out Marshall Peak, apparently. I will check that out at some point. All right. Possibly.